বসে বসে ইলেকশনের আপডেট দেখতেছি টিভিতে, লাইভ টিভি সম্প্রচারক। কে কে পাস করলো ইলেকশনে? তো নাই যে এই লেবার পার্টি জয়লাভের পথে, বিজয়ের পথে ইচ্ছে লেবার পার্টি। General election, pro-triers in Glasgow. Exit poll Labour 410, Conservative 131, SNP 10, Liberal Democrat 61, Referendal 13, others 25.
Well, I was going to say, we're going to just go over that Newcastle upon Tyne Central and West results before we go to Watch Party, just because it's quite interesting. Again, Labour have held that seat, 18,875. But again, we've got Reform UK in second place with 7,815, and the Conservatives pushed into third with 4,228. What's interesting about the Labour vote share is it has gone down. So again, we're seeing that pattern of Reform eating into not just Labour's vote, but also pushing the Conservatives into third place. You had some historical comparison to 97 there about why we shouldn't all get so alarmed in the Labour Party.
And that's pretty much what happened to Labour seats after 1997. The strong traditional Labour seats, the majorities declined, the turnout declined, and I think Reform probably is getting people who abstained in previous elections to come out and vote. But at the same time, Labour did extraordinarily well in the more marginal seats, largely thanks to hard-working Labour MPs who put themselves about and increased their majority. And actually, I think you see something similar happening again.
All right,
in terms of turnout, 54% down nearly 10%.
All these turnouts are quite low, I would suggest. Shall we cross now to our GB News Watch Party in Essex with Patrick Christie's?
Labour hold Newcastle Central and West. Newcastle Labour win করে ফেলছে সেন্ট্রাল এন্ড ওয়েস্ট।
Sean Bailey, Tory peer. We've also just got some wonderful GB News viewers and listeners here. Sean, I will start by saying to you, a challenging evening for you, isn't it? What do you make of this so far?
I'll repeat again, there's no sugarcoat. This is a devastating night for the Tories. I think my personal angle will be there's a lot of good Tory MPs who will now be cast out, who would actually deliver what the country wanted if they were asked. I think this...
Hi, hello.
When you look at
Sid.
Reform's results,
What's the name? Shet Baira. Bira. How was your guys' day?
The confidence to move, to the left, to the right.
How was you guys' day?
Conversation that ordinary people will
Good.
But also, Keir Starmer will have to look at his vote share and what Reform has done to that in order to steer himself.
How is yours?
Yeah, I mean, where
you okay?
Did this rot set in for you, Sean? Who is to blame for this result?
Just watching election update, election result. UK general election.
One of the things that Keir Starmer and all his new MPs will find out is government is very difficult. The other thing is, I think there's been a number of events along the way. We needed to deliver more. We needed to tell our own story more.
Beira. Where are you from?
Boris was an act of self-harm, as far as I can see.
Just on that, I know that some people's views on Boris Johnson have perhaps changed a little bit over time, but could I just get a little bit of a straw poll by virtue of noise in this room? Who preferred Boris to Rishi? So if you preferred Boris... Okay. If you preferred Rishi... But not the sausage. The Labour votes are over there, put his hand up, so I think that maybe tells you everything you need to know, yeah. Okay, now, I've just got some people around me here. So you've got a microphone in front of you. Is there anything you'd particularly like to ask Sean, or any observations that you'd be keen to make about what the results are so far?
I think that, a government can lock people in their homes and shut down businesses.
Yeah, it is American.
It shouldn't be allowed. It's just too much. I think that
GBN.
no government should have that much power.
So ever since that happened, Because now conceivably we've got a stonking majority of a party that wanted to do that for longer and harder, sure.
I mean, look, Keir
Martin
Starmer, from
Fair,
when
hi,
he
hello.
received making the wrong calls, he wanted to do
Hello,
everything else for
Martin.
longer.
How are you?
Actually, this is one of the problems of being government. The whole political class virtually was in favour of that. And I think one of the problems with a supermajority is you feel like you have a big
You are a
mandate.
loner.
Keir Starmer will have to remember he represents a broad set of
Why?
people, even people who didn't vote for him. So that's going to be his challenge, to make sure that he doesn't just do what his activists want, but what the country wants.
Yeah, everything now is about
Jashan
right?
Lazanas.
All of these issues
Hi,
very easy to sit
hello.
on the sidelines and snipe about and moan about. He's now going to have to try to deal with.
Good man, good.
See if he can do that. Could I just ask you here?
Did you watching the news, in the election news?
You'd like to ask Sean, have a chat with him about it all?
Well, I'm a small business owner based in the East Midlands. I am scared for tomorrow. I've read the Labour manifesto today about all around employment and stuff, and it's going to change. And it's changed because of big business. They're going to bring the unions back in, but it's going to affect us little employers. I employ 8 people, and I'm frightened for tomorrow. So, Sean, I was going to ask you, who do you think now can bring this Conservative Party back in this next Parliament?
Good, all right. So this is the next leader question, isn't it? Go on.
I think there's 2 things to say. I think first and foremost, excuse me,
ইলেকশনে ডাইরেক্ট রেজাল্ট কোনটা সরাসরি লিস্ট ব্রডকাস্ট হয় আই থিংক ইটস বিবিসি
we need to consider being a voice for real conservatism. Somebody said to me tonight,
Russia. Oh, you're from Russia.
I'm more upset about is the loss of conservatism.
I'm from UK, United Kingdom.
Small business. The whole political class has become a bit obsessed with big business. Let's go back to small business. You are our country's employers, employing many more people. But if the Conservatives can have a conversation about fundamentally what's going on, then we could come back. Because the key thing about
Good
the
TV, Miranda.
that is a protest vote because the country is hurting and we have to provide those answers.
Can I just ask you before I come to this gentleman here?
I'm from UK.
You're paying as much tax as
Why you ask me?
at the moment?
Oh yeah, and I know that I'm going to be paying more from tomorrow.
No.
They say that they're not going to put.
Kazakhstan is, I don't know, never ever I've seen
They're going to
Kazakhstan.
make us pay for our energy bills for this new green energy. They're going to put our road tax up. They're going to put tolls on our roads. We're going to be just
But-
paying through the roof.
And I take it that you feel as though you absolutely can't afford
Very nice.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
That costs
it's a really
jobs.
hard year.
That costs jobs. It looks good when you ramp up taxes.
I want drink something.
They have to cut the biggest expense, and that's always people. It will cost jobs.
Okay. Now, sir, are there any key points
Different.
that you'd like to make about this?
Why
election?
is
So
the live broadcasting the election result?
Sean, just fire away, really.
Yeah, I mean, Sean is the only politician around the table. I should just say I'm David from Basildon.
I want to watching my area.
He wasn't a toolmaker.
No, this is my personal things. I give both the labor. Bob
So what I really want to
Smith.
ask, and Sean's the only politician around the table, is can we trust Keir Starmer? Because he sits there with his sad face and says, people laugh when I say my dad was a tool maker. And I looked it up and I fact checked it. He owned a tool factory. So why is he lying on that? He doesn't understand why people laugh. If you look up tool as a definition, it's not a very nice one.
It's
At
not.
best, it's
No.
a person who's controlled by
And we
others.
won't go into what it could be at worst.
I don't vote
I think
reform.
you're making a point there about whether or not he can be trusted, because his stigma is he's flip-flopped on a lot of different things, hasn't he?
Look, I'll go back to
Can I just put, so is he a liar for all of those, but also, I think on the Tories, I was watching a TV programme today and there's a quote, betrayal never comes from the enemy. And the Tories betrayed their voters.
So let me do both of them. So firstly, if you talk about the Tories, I think in many ways we abandon our core beliefs, and that's what people hold on to. You vote Tory with your
I'm
head.
looking another
A
channel.
lot of the Tories, I mean, I spoke to a young boy, I'll give it to you straight, and he said a lot of
Was a
Conservative
nice
MPs think Twitter
good
is politics.
result.
And the mistake they made was abandoning our beliefs. You know, we believe in a country, believe in hard work, we believe in low taxes. Where was that in Parliament? So, in many respects, I couldn't argue with you that the public feel betrayed. When you talk about Keir Patrick's point, he's about to learn. It's very easy to sit on the sidelines and poke fun. What's he going to do? And I'll give you one example of that. He
Why
talks
was
about
there
his
another
wonderful,
live
wonderful to be
between BBC
fully
One,
ineffective.
Channel
Because unless you
4?
have a relationship with the country where the people come from, you could deliver no change. And I say that because I
Skywatch. I'll just say Skywatch.
Mayors, local governments, and central government working in partnership.
Okay,
to
target
start rebuilding
3,
our country, build the homes we need, the
47%,
transport
224,
infrastructure that we
60.
need. I've been in opposition now for 14 years. I'm ready to get going in the
Exit
huge task
poll
that we have ahead of us
410.
and the missions that we set out in our manifesto are now national missions. And we want to work in partnership with the
Be
whole
nice
country
people.
to start delivering that reform.
Okay, Beth and then Ruth.
Just quick question, Rachel, is just on getting ready. Are you ready to become the first female chancellor? And if you are, what should the public, what should viewers expect?
Here's a Labour hold Newcastle Central and West.
In terms of kickstarting
Labour hold Washington
so
and
have to
Gateshead
get in order
South.
to improve public service.
Labour
So
gain
you have
Swindon
still
South.
plan, before the month is out. What can you give us?
So
any
এটা হইছে
idea,
লেবার এখন পর্যন্ত
what you
লেবারের
want
রেজাল্ট
your
হইছে
days?
6.
Well, we sought a mandate at this
Labour
election to
wins
grow the
6
economy,
seats.
and that is what we're going to get started on doing. Reform of our planning system is clearly essential to build the housing we need, the transport infrastructure, the energy infrastructure. And on a personal level, if I am appointed by Keir Starmer as the Chancellor of the Exchequer, I will be the first
650
female
আসনের
Chancellor of
মধ্যে
the
মাত্র
Exchequer. And I see with that both
6টা আউট
privilege and
6টা
also
আউট
the
করছে
responsibility to
6টার
ensure
মধ্যে
that our
6টাই
economy
পাইছে
is
লেবার
including women who have borne the brunt of austerity, who are paid less, earn less
So
than
guys,
men, and our policies like the free breakfast clubs, the
Okay,
additional
yeah, we
nursery places.
what are you thinking about that?
Another strong political woman come in, Ruth Davidson.
Yeah, I was going to ask Rachel. I mean, one of Keir Starmer's mantras during this campaign has been, "I have changed the Labour Party, and now I'm
Labour
changing
might
this
end
country."
up winning,
Actually, one of the bigger
unfortunately.
changes
Yeah,
has been
Labour
the
win.
business community, and that has largely been down to you and your team in the Shadow Treasury.
Labour
In
is
terms
winning.
of when you started as Shadow Chancellor, not long after we finished with John McDonnell and others, I mean, how much work have you had to put in to gain trust of the business community, and how much do you want to continue the journey that you've done? Because I personally, from an outside perspective, from an opposition perspective, would say you've probably done more than anybody, including here, to change the view of the Labour Party in this country over the last 5 years.
Praise indeed.
Well, we've campaigned as a pro-business and a pro-growth party, and that's how we intend to govern. The partnership approach to try and unlock that private sector investment, which is crucial to improving our productivity and growth performance. So working in partnership with business to ensure that we bring wealth and prosperity to all parts of the UK, with more good jobs, paying decent wages right across Britain. That's what I want to do. And of course, we have to work in partnership with business if we're to achieve that.
Okay, just one last thought before we let you go. I know you've got a busy night ahead.
I was just going to say, no, Keir changed the party.
Okay, I will leave that hanging. David Lammy we had on the programme a little bit earlier on, and there is some suggestion that given that Dougie Alexander is likely to win the seat back up in Scotland, they'll be vying for the post of Foreign Secretary. Who would you prefer?
Well, it's up to Keir Starmer to appoint his top team, and if he becomes... Well, of course, but Keir Starmer has done more than anyone to turn around the Labour Party. He has, in the last 4.5 years, done something which I don't think many people believe was possible in December 2019 to ensure that Labour could be a viable political force again. He's done that. This is his moment, and he will, tomorrow, if he becomes Prime Minister, appoint the cabinet that he chooses.
Okay. Good to talk to you. Thank you.
Great to talk to you too, Kate.
Yeah. Thank you. Just
I think early priority for investment might be digital infrastructure in Leeds.
I think you might not be wrong. Just hearing that Jeremy Corbyn's arrived at his count in Islington.
Being told that's too close to call at the moment
Yeah,
by
that's
my
what
Labour
yeah,
sources.
that's what we're hearing as well. His team is saying they're in with a shot, but the exit poll saying otherwise.
So anybody's there?
Saying too close to call. We'll have to wait until they declare around about 3 o'clock in the morning.
I've got an update for that actually from a Labour source. It's literally just come in.
Yeah.
It's looking difficult for us in Islington North. So that's the latest I've got.
For Labour or for
It's looking difficult for Labour in Islington North. So that's suggesting that perhaps Corbyn might take it. So first I had too close to call.
Yeah.
Half an hour later I've got it's looking difficult for us. So let's see.
Let's see. Somebody who is feeling pretty confident given the exit poll, that is Nigel Farage. This is what he said.
It's midnight. There were two results in from the northeast of England that put reform on 30% of the vote. That is way more than any possible prediction or projection. It's almost unbelievable. And what does it mean? It means we're going to win seats, many, many seats, I think, right now across the country. But to watch the TV coverage, it's almost comical. There's not a single representative on there from Reform UK. Mainstream media are in denial just as much as our political parties. This is going to be 6 million votes plus. This, folks, is huge.
Just to clarify, Mr. Farage, if I may, I'll be chatting to you later on and I will correct you then. You said no Reform people have been interviewed by the media this evening. I think you'll find that we did we not?
We did, extensively.
Yes. Mr. Ball was his name, Mr. Ball, I think his name was.
Thank
you.
Forgive me.
Thank you. Andrew Lenson's joined us. Hello.
Okay.
Goodness.
Devastating night for the Conservatives, and obviously we need to regroup. We're going to have to rethink. We're going to have to do it quickly. I think there's a very clear message for us from lots of people who, certainly from where I've been around the country, well, it's that we've not been properly Conservative enough. And I don't actually think, in the end, we'll see huge enthusiasm for Labour. But I think a lot of people are very angry with the Conservatives. I think Reform have done very well out of it because they've been a protest. I think a lot of Conservatives have gone to Reform in lots of areas. And we're going to have to rethink. You know, it's fantastic that we live in this democracy. You know, just 5 years ago, everyone was saying, oh, Labour's going to have to wait 10 years before they even get a chance at government again. But here we are, just 5 years on. And the people have spoken, and it's great that they can do that, and there's a smooth transition of power, as there will be.
What does not being Conservative enough mean? Coming to you in a second, Trevor.
So, you know, there's lots of things. People feel we've not dealt with the issues that concern them. Migration, I think, has been a big issue, something that the Reform Party has benefited from a lot. People are worried about the sharing of scarce resources, the cost of living, the number of people they feel are arriving unfairly to this country. There's a lot of people who have concerns about frankly, the turnover of leadership in the Conservative Party. I think a lot of us will agree that that kind of turmoil is not helpful to government.
Labour 7.
You know, since
So we've got a
2010.
Prime Minister who's a Brexiteer.
Other parties 0.
On planes and send them to Rwanda.
Yeah, absolutely, but it didn't happen. And yeah, no, I completely agree. He's a Brexiteer. I'm a
We have
Brexiteer too. But the fact is, government is
not
very
been
difficult.
conservative
We've had some
enough.
incredibly difficult issues to deal with over the last 14 years. And actually, in a lot of
Rishi
ways,
Biday, Rishi Bhaiyer Biday.
more people in employment now. We've got huge achievements in net zero.
ঋষি তুমি ইলেকশনটা দিয়ে ভুল করছো আরো 6 মাস প্রাইম মিনিস্টার থাকতে পারলাই না তুমি বেশি বুদ্ধিমান করেছো
The country feels broken.
And I don't disagree.
It feels like Conservatives have broken the country, broken the railways, broken the water system, sewage everywhere. That's how it feels to people. They wouldn't recognise you reeling off those achievements. Everyone just feels this country's gone backwards under the Tories.
I agree, that's how people feel, and that's why, as I say, we need to regroup and rethink. And it's very clear that in this great country of ours, the people will speak, and I think we will see much more frequent turnover of governments because government is increasingly difficult.
Okay, Trevor and then Beth.
Yeah, I mean, let's not be too abstract about this. You say people have spoken, and they've said one thing: we don't fancy Tories much.
Yeah. Yes.
And the other thing they said is we like the look of reform rather than going to Labour. I mean, it's possible that actually the combined Labour and Tory vote this time will be the lowest for more than a century. what do you think is going on there, and what do you have to do about it?
Yeah, so
Who is in live, my friend?
for the days and weeks and months
Who is
ahead,
watching my live
but
video?
it's absolutely right. It looks very early hours.
Who's
It does
watching
look
my
as
live
though
video?
Reform, that party of protest, has really touched a nerve with
Please
people.
subscribe my
People who
channel,
are sick of
viewers.
an incumbent government
Go to your
who feel
channel.
hasn't met their requirements. They don't have enthusiasm for Labour. I have huge concerns about Labour myself, but it does look as though the surge in reform has been enough to significantly give Labour a huge majority. I think there's a lot of questions for Labour about what they're going to do with people's taxes, with the country, how are they going to make things better? And I think voters have felt the same, they've concluded the same, they don't see Labour having the answers. So they're voting for reform as well. Can somebody else tell me?
Hold on a
Yeah,
second,
no,
Andy.
not to take away from
Hold on a
Andy,
second,
but
Andy.
it's
Just let me say Gateshead Central and Wickham are Labour hold there.
Can we just go back to the campaign and let's
Yeah.
just go back to where the party is, because on these projections it's the worst performance
devastating.
for 2 centuries plus. You were furious about the election being called when it was called, weren't you?
Personally, I was, for very good reasons. As a health minister, I just launched this dental recovery plan, which is way better than Labour's offer. I was about to launch a progress update on the family hubs and Start for Life, an absolutely integral part of what I see as a way to really improve our society. So for me personally, I felt there were some things I was desperate to get out the door. So yes, I was angry, but equally, I do completely understand it's a very personal decision for any Prime Minister. The timing has to weigh up all sorts of different
You
considerations.
wanted to put in a resignation letter, didn't you? Didn't you want to ask him to...
I'm not going.
You're not going to say it on...
Have a look at this, Gateshead Central. I mean, look at the 21% down, Nicholas Oliver, and look what's happening with reform. This is Gateshead Central and Wickham. Labour's vote down a little bit as well. Tories are fourth there. Look at that. Tories are fourth in Gateshead Central and Wickham. More than just regrouping, you're going to have to give serious thought about what you're going to do about reform.
I totally agree. I mean, that is for the days and weeks ahead, is to consider how is it that in effect we have led to people voting for what is a protest party. It's come out of nowhere. There's been all sorts of...
It's the Brexit by any other name.
Yeah, well, possibly, except that what we have seen is some pretty horrible comments and views expressed by some reform candidates. We also had a reform candidate just in the last couple of weeks reverting back to the Conservatives, saying that they wanted to back the Conservative. One, but nevertheless, the fact is that their vote was not a hard vote. It wasn't a very clear manifesto. There's all sorts of pledges that, a bit like the Lib Dems, people think, well, we can safely vote for them because they're never going to have to...
Is it this thing, though, you just said, I do agree with what you said, but shouldn't you, therefore, have sort of taken reform on a bit more than you did? It felt to me, watching from the sidelines, that you were kind of frightened of them, and you wouldn't sort of call them out as Conservative MPs. Is that a fair point?
I think it's a fair point. In hindsight, we should have gone after reform much more in the early days. But genuinely, again, that's hindsight. And I think at the time, the plan was to really make the appeal on the grounds of what the Conservatives have to offer. And as you know, a lot of the campaign was about, we will cut your taxes, Labour will raise your taxes. So there were some very clear dividing lines between us and the traditional party of opposition. And so, yes, I think in hindsight, we will be thinking, wow, we should have gone after reform voters much more than we did.
Well, I mean, I was going to ask whether it was that wise, looking at the trends, to come on and dismiss reform in this way. But I want to ask you about a specific question about your own constituency. According to the exit poll, it looks like it will have gone. And one of the interesting things about your
We should say former constituency, which is why you're sitting here.
Yeah, is that it's 10th in the list of mortgage holders. I mean, a lot of people own their own homes. And I noticed one name that hasn't been mentioned tonight is Liz Truss. Now, to what extent did the Truss interregnum really...
This is maybe more than you bargained for.
Buckle up, girl. We're going to go through some... This weekend, we've got the British Grand Prix there, just coming up. I was talking to some
constituents and their friends in the pub just this evening, having just voted. And people there were saying, you know, we're sticking with the Conservatives, but you do need to change. So that is very clear to me. I have high hopes. We had a great candidate there. But to your point about, is Liz Truss, has she been a big factor? I think undoubtedly yes. Yeah. I think actually what Labour have done very well is to somehow make out that the whole cost of living crisis, you know, the impact of Putin's invasion of Ukraine and energy bills going through the roof was all about Liz Truss's mini budget, which isn't true. And the Bank of England quite clearly, when I was on the Treasury Committee, made quite clear that that was a blip. The Liz Truss mini budget was a blip. But Labour have made absolutely fair enough. They made great political hay out of it.
Lib Democrats, it looks as though they're projected to do very well this evening, potentially 61 seats according to the exit poll. We've just had some new images in of the man himself. A Liberal Democrat, and my goodness me, what a campaign he had.
Yeah, he's lost a bit. He must have
He's not, why is he in a puddle?
I think he may have a new nickname in the House of Commons when he gets back, because we like giving people nicknames, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
I think people will refer to him from now on as the Honourable Member for Alton Towers.
I've also been told actually from Lib Dem sources that they think they're going to take Esher, which is Dominic Raab's former seat, and also Harpenden, which has been Conservative.
Kingston and Surbiton.
Andrew, I wanted to ask you something about, you've talked about learning lessons and the future direction of the party. You obviously stood for leadership yourself. You also backed Penny Mordaunt and ran her leadership campaign. What do you want for the leadership of the party for the future? Do you think if Penny holds her seat, it should be her? Where do you think the party should go, Andrea?
So, obviously, the night is yet young, literally and figuratively. There's a long way to go before those sorts of considerations. I mean, I'm a big fan of Penny, as you rightly say, and that is one key question. You know, I went to help her for a day, and she has a lot of support. There's a lot of people who are rooting for her, who are trying to make sure she does get over the line. I do think it will need to be someone from the centre-right. I think our country is a country of, you know, of thoughtful and honourable people who are extremely tolerant until pushed. And clearly, in recent months and possibly years, they have been pushed. They have felt pushed. But centre-right is not.
You told her how to let you go.
But the exit poll seems to be underestimated.
কি খালি আলোচনা হইব নি?
There's a shy Tory thing going on, so maybe Penny Mordaunt might be.
Yeah, I've got to let
Might be okay, but
we'll see.
got to bring some cheer.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'd love to talk to you for long, but we have to let you go. And so thank you very much indeed. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too.
Thank you. 9 seats up for grabs in Birmingham. Undoubtedly, most of them will be Labour, given what we're looking at with the election. With the exit poll, I should say, but we'll have to wait and see. Gaza, a big issue there. Becky standing by. I know that you've got lots of questions as far as that is concerned. Trevor. Hi, Becky. 9 counts, I think, in Birmingham. Talk us through what's happening at the moment.
Yes, the vote's still being counted here. We've not been given a sort of estimated time of first declaration, although we are expecting Birmingham Ladywood will be the first constituency that we'll get a result for. And that's been a really interesting contest when we talk about the effect of Gaza and the views of Muslim voters going into this election. Look, the political parties, particularly Labour, were aware that their policy, the failure, as seen by many Muslim voters of Labour to call for an immediate ceasefire, has hurt them. They saw that in the local elections, in areas where there are high Muslim populations. The share of the vote for Labour went down in the local elections, and so they knew that going into this contest, some seats that would be what you would imagine as safe Labour seats would potentially prove difficult, and so it's proven in Birmingham Ladywood. Now that is the seat of Shadow Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood. Now last time around, 2019, despite the fact it was a Tory landslide, she won 80% of the vote in Birmingham Ladywood. That should be a completely safe seat, but actually it was one of the seats, one of the 16 key seats seen as Labour to be ones to worry about because of this issue over Gaza, because of high Muslim populations, and one of the seats that they've ploughed a huge amount of resources into to try to keep that seat for Shabana Mahmood, a key ally of Keir Starmer. Now, I'm hearing from Labour sources They think she will have done it, but they think it's going to be close. And that's because we've had a man, Ahmed Yaqub, who's come in as an independent candidate. He's well known. He's a local lawyer in the area. He's got some problematic views, some people would say. He was recorded on a podcast seemingly joking about violence against women, something that he's apologised for. But he is well known, and he has managed to garner support, very specifically campaigning on the issue of Gaza. So that's going to be a really interesting one to watch, and I think particularly
Gaza ইস্যুতে ভোট কিছু নষ্ট হয়েছে
and whether that suffers in areas where we have a high Muslim population, such as Birmingham Ladywood.
Hi Becky, yes, that issue seems to have become a very big one. By the way, Kay's just stepped out for the moment, so I now have all the power. So let me ask you about the issue in Birmingham. There are, I think, 7, 8, 9 constituencies which are amongst the top constituencies for proportion of Muslims. Is that something that they are talking about in the count tonight?
Absolutely. And look, we know, I mean, Jess Phillips, another Birmingham MP, Birmingham Yardley, she had to step down from the shadow cabinet and over Gaza, and that's because she knows that for her constituents, she knew that a large percentage of them are Muslim and a large percentage of them were unhappy with the stance that Labour was taking on Gaza, and that's why, you know, Birmingham is traditionally a Labour stronghold. We are expecting Labour to win certainly the 9 seats that are being counted here tonight, and win one of them back from the Tories, Birmingham Northfield, that went Tory in 2019. But we're not expecting them to win the same share of the vote as they won last time, despite the national picture being reversed, and that is because we are expecting Muslim voters to punish Labour. We've got a couple of other independent candidates, as well as Ahmed Yaqub, who've been really out campaigning hard on this issue of Gaza, and we're expecting those candidates to take votes away from Labour. So although those seats will probably go Labour, they may win a smaller share of the votes than they did last time around in some of these Birmingham constituencies.
Thanks, Becky. The boss is back.
Yeah, I heard you. I heard you. You said you had all the power. I think.
will not be speaking.
No.
Frozen.
Yeah. It's been great seeing you, Trevor. Bye, Trevor. Meantime, Ed is here. I've got the Percy pigs, by the way. Crack them open.
It's worth looking at the map, isn't it? Because we've had this concentration of results so far in the northeast, of which Gateshead, I think, is the most recent. There it is there. But we've also had the result down in Swindon as well. So we are starting to kind of get a little bit more variety. But for the time being, we've only got a small number to go on. But so far, the exit poll really does. And those numbers, you know, you're seeing them on your screen coming up, and you're kind of perhaps wondering, are those actually borne out by the results so far? The short answer is yes. The short answer is so far, they are definitely, you know, the results we're seeing are within the realms of what the exit poll was suggesting. So, for instance, Gateshead Central, okay, the exit poll, this is all the exit polls projections, 51% for Labour, a little bit lower on the result, but I think, you know, that's kind of within the realms of what you might expect within the realms of over 45% is the actual result. That's the actual result over there. Reform, 18% said the exit poll turned out to be 21.4, so a bit better. And some of these exit polls actually Reform doing a little bit worse than the exit poll, some of the results. Lib Dems more or less bang on. Conservatives a little bit better. And interestingly, if we look kind of around those different areas, you're seeing kind of some deviations in some of those facets. These are the kinds of things basically in the exit poll. These are the kinds of data points that a lot of the modelers were looking at to try and work out whether there's any patterns. Well, definitely when it comes to the Leave vote, that is one of the things that's been borne out here. But final thing I just want to kind of underline, have a look at this. This is just, again, showing you the exit poll numbers, but giving you a sense of what it would mean for the picture of the UK. And what we've done is we've taken all those hexes. Each of these represents a constituency across the UK. I know it's not geographically accurate, but it gives you a bit of a sense of where these constituencies are. And broadly speaking, look, that's what we're talking about if we're talking about Labour having 410 seats, so getting towards that Blair majority, well over the line that the Labour Party would need to get to, well over that line, and the Conservative Party really a shadow of its former self. If you see it there, there's the Conservative Party, 131 seats. One way we can do that is by looking at the results versus what actually happened. And again, here's a little sneak preview of that. Okay, we've had a few constituencies so far. There's Newcastle, there's Washington, there's Swindon South, there's Sunderland Central. And
Hello, thank you for coming, watching my live video.
And actually,
Anja
in these constituencies so far,
Ricic, where are you from?
a wee bit worse than the exit polls suggested. Remember, the exit poll talking about 13 reform MPs by the end of this process. And broadly speaking, they're not doing quite as well in the actual results. But like I said, it's early days, and we're talking really about a small number of constituencies.
Anja Ricic, where are you from?
We'll show you that as well later on for the Conservatives. We'll show it to you for the Labour Party as well, because the trends matter. The trends matter.
I'm just being told by Isla that the reform is second.
How are you?
Conservatives under 20% in all of the northeast constituencies so far.
That's exactly it. And I mean, looking for instance, so that was Gateshead. We'll bring Gateshead back up.
And I tell you something else while I've got you. South Shields, same pattern.
South Shields as well. I didn't load that on before.
I know, because it's only just come in. So it's breaking news for you. South Shields, Labour winning, Labour hold, I should say. Reform second, the Conservatives into fourth place, very much like we see in both of them. Beaten by the Greens. Ed Davey is just arriving at his count. There you go. As we were saying earlier.
I sort of expected him to jet ski or like fall out of the sky or bungee jumping or have like a rocket trail or something. I'm a little bit disappointed in that, to be honest.
I think it's fair to say he's had a good campaign.
লিবডেমে এবার বালা আসন ভাইলার লিবারেল ডেমোক্রেটে
Well, Keir Starmer, 54%.
Low for both, I would say, but you'd think Farage with the big gatherings to have a turnout of lower than 60%. I wouldn't have predicted that. I'd have predicted much
one of the
higher
things that we keep getting in is you'll see us on our phones. It's not because we're rude or that we're not listening to each other. It's because we've got lots of information coming in all the time. And one of the rumours that is doing the rounds is that there's actually a bit of concern that Labour might be being run very close in Normanton, which is Yvette Cooper's seat. So that would be one of the former, as you know, she's a shadow secretary. No, sorry, yeah, Pontefract. Sorry, but in terms of the seats here, Barnsley South, Normanton, Pontefract, Castleford are ones where reformer running. Good. Well, it'll be interesting to see.
It will. Let's have a look at this one behind us. Where is it, Lee? Can you see?
Oh,
there
come on, Lee.
Yeah, let's go right there. And Shingy, here it is. Shingy's right behind me. I can see you, Shingy. I'm waving. You can't see me.
Hi, Kate. Well, just an update in the sense of looking at the declaration here. So it's going to come a little later than expected. It'll be about 2 a.m. We're expecting 1:30 a.m. So we're about 30 minutes from the declaration here in Leigh. It's interesting here because of that seismic shift we had in 2019 with the first ever Conservative MP being elected here. The first time Labour had lost here since...
Labour's 9 seat.
Today the polls are projecting that Joe Platt, the MP who lost her seat that night, will win and win comfortably.
এটা কোথা থেকে হচ্ছে লেক থেকে পাস করছে লেবার একটা
And I also just wanted to reflect on why that was a seismic victory. This is a former mill town, a former mining town in and around that Red Wall area, which obviously collapsed last time, but it looks like it's being rebuilt at least in the northeast. Another national trend that I think is worth talking about is that reform vote. So here we've been talking to the reform candidate and his team. They sound quietly confident that they can sneak into second place and that the Conservatives will fall into third, which obviously suggests that they're having, just like they are across the country by the looks of it, having parts of their vote share sliced by reform. This is, of course, a Brexit voting seat. They voted for Brexit here in 2016, so that's linked to that complex mix of factors. But a headline here is we're expecting Labour to win the seat, perhaps with reform and an interesting subplot coming second here.
About half an hour delay.
Used to declare her own too. So
She used to work
for me,
for
that
you.
was normal. I predicted.
She was one of your aides?
Yeah, Jo's brilliant. And, you know, the great thing is that she lost in 2019, but has dedicated herself to a community project of actually bringing an old mill back to life, and she's done it brilliantly. And I think that says something about her. You know, sometimes politicians in and then they lose and they're out. She really deserves to win, Jo. She's a
Anna
great
Turley,
friend.
another one, actually. Anna Turley,
You've
trying
got
again
to
for
respect
Redcar.
that, haven't you? When you've lost, but you stick around and you rebuild. So Anna as well, Jo, I think that's a really commendable thing.
Yeah, we've seen just a few moments ago.
Right.
You can, go on.
I've just got this from a Lib Dem source saying that they now believe they've won 47 seats, beating their 1997 result. An astonishing night for the Liberal Democrats.
But that undershoots the
That
undershoots
undershoots
that quite a lot.
61
is what.
Yeah, but I mean,
So far.
yeah, so far. Yeah, or
although projected so far.
Yeah.
Is what you're saying.
Anyway.
We're keeping an eye on that because look who's joined us, John McDonnell. Hello.
Hello.
If only you guys could have done this in 2019, then you know you'd have been in a much better position from a standing start.
Yep, but let's
Well, thanks
rejoice.
for joining.
Let's rejoice about getting rid of the Tories, shall we? That's good enough for me.
Yeah, well, it's great to see you, John. We just had an interesting conversation, Nick, and Margaret Hodge. I like me.
Harmonious, I'm sure.
Oh, extremely so. You know, there's a little bit of difference there, but I think the messages of the campaign sometimes haven't reflected some of what's in the manifesto. Do you look at our manifesto and see good things like renationalisation of railways, building of council homes?
Yeah. I can see shades of the 2019-2017 manifesto in parts of it, definitely.
Foundational document.
You're trying to tempt me, aren't you?
Andy, what I didn't say was as you two were having this discussion, you and Margaret, sorry, not you, Nick and Margaret were having this discussion, the senior Labour figure texted me and said more seats does not mean more money. The point being that even though the majority is going to potentially be very big, it does not change Labour's position on tax, spend, investment. Are you intensely relaxed about that, John?
The situation is this. They're going to have, I think, the most toxic inheritance any Labour government has ever had. That's the first thing. The second thing, they've got a limited programme that they've campaigned on, the 6 policy areas. They'll implement those.
Just bring my
The reality is within
argument.
6 to 12 months, they'll have to recognise that they'll need to be a lot more radical. And they can be. I think they can be. And it would only require elements of some... I'll just give an example.
What does that look like?
Well, I'll give you an example. One of the key issues that's come up on the doorstep with me in my constituency, and I don't think mine's much different from others, 30% of our children are in poverty in my constituency.
Child benefit.
Child benefit, but also the 2-child limit has got to go.
Yeah.
So there's issues like that I think they'll shift onto because it's almost inevitable if we're going to really fulfil the mission of a Labour government.
Okay, so this is interesting.
I'll just explain while we're looking at Damien, then we'll come back because it looks definitely. The Lib Dems have had their first gain in Harrogate and Knaresborough. Former Andrew Jones Transport Minister losing.
Conservative stronghold.
Exactly. So, and those are how the numbers are looking. Labour 4th. Look at that. I mean, is that tactical voting? Looking at that right there. What do you think?
What we're seeing right the way across the country is people are just voting to get rid of the Tories, and they're doing it in whatever way they think is appropriate. And I think that is tactical voting.
But John, if we could go back to just because this is interesting, because you obviously are on the left of the party. There's a big chunk of MPs or candidates to be MPs potentially on that side within the party. Just what you're saying is that in 6 to 12 months, you think that the government will have to become more radical. You want to see them scrap the 2-child cap on benefits, which Keir Starmer very clearly in the interview I did with him said he would not do, and that extended to the entire. That extended to the Parliament.
Yeah.
So you're here to, in a way, just put down a marker, aren't you, about what you expect from them as time goes on?
I think it's not just me. I think the whole of our party will
expect more because things are so bad out there. And what I think people will expect is to, yes, let's get this first wave of policies implemented because you'll restore confidence then and trust in the government be able to do these things. But then let's be honest with people about how bad things are, and therefore there'll be a second wave of policy discussion. There always is, even under the Blair government. If you remember, they had that first 2 years where they held by the Tory budget. After that, it then became much more radical. And Gordon Brown in particular took on the issue of child poverty.
Beth, the thing you need to remember is the radicalism may come from devolution, because we're making a pitch to say, look, let us try things that might then, you don't have to make a national change. We're saying, give us more devolved control of the
okay, but
we'll get more people into work. We will save money and get more people into work. That's the radicalism that may come.
The vehicles are there now to do that, which we never had before.
One more thing, and then I will. Just in terms of this, say, John, are you suggesting that if necessary, you do think that Rachel Reeves should raise some taxes around some of the grey areas that they haven't ruled out in order to, for example, cut or increase the child or get rid of the child cap?
I agree. Okay, I agree that the importance is to get growth back in the economy. But I also know how tough that is. So just a 1% growth in economy will bring in about 14 billion. That's how much tax revenue it bring in. So yeah, you've got 14 billion to spend once you get that growth. In the meantime, in my constituency, there are a large number of people living in poverty. We've got a housing crisis.
Result out
have been run down.
2 দিন লাগবে লাগে অন্য এটা আইছে
Inevitably, what will happen?
আর একটা 10টা
will recognise the scale of the problems, and they will have to
only 10
after that first wave, as every
10 city result out
where we go next. And I think that will be about growth, but it'll also be about redistribution.
Makes sense, John, but
guys, let me just interrupt. I do need to interject on occasion to say that Gillian Keegan looks as though potentially is going to lose her seat to the Liberal Democrats, and that's in Chichester. She'd had 60% of the vote in 2019. The latest we're hearing is that potentially she's going to lose her vote to the Lib Dems. Trevor, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, the 1997, the Blair government, you're completely right, things changed, but they actually came in with some quite a radical program. Bank of England Independence didn't tell us until day after, but Sure Start, minimum wage, Human Rights Act,
education.
So they actually came in with quite a radical prospectus. That's not true about this Labour administration, is it?
That's true, and I think many governments get radicalised in power as well, and I think that's inevitably going to happen with this government. Otherwise, this is my fear, and we've seen it with the rise of reform. Reform will breed off disillusionment, and we can't disillusion people. Otherwise, we'll go the way of Germany, France, and Italy. That's why it's important to recognise and be honest with people about the scale of the challenges, of course. And saying to people, now let's prepare for the second wave of policy making this government will inevitably have to undertake. And that will have to be more.
How long are you going to give them before you start holding their seats up?
I think this is really interesting, Trevor, because I think John is an incredibly important voice that's going to be in there. If the size of the majority is as big as this, there's going to be a lot of pressure on Keir Starmer from all different wings of the party. Now, one of the problems our party had, particularly near the end, was part of it was cows. So the Brexiteers kept asking for more of the One Nation guys and the ERG, and the One Nation guys got timider and more timid and more timid and more timid. Actually, you need balance so that if Keir wants to do something or not do something, he can say, well, you guys are asking for money for this, but this other set of people are saying we can't do that. So this balance between kind of Rachel Reeves and her treasury
the broad church approach.
Exactly, the broad church approach. As you go through a parliament, that gets tougher and tougher to do. What's really interesting listening to you now, John, is how you're framing this as the money has to come in first. Now, as sort of almost the grey beard, the kind of mystical leader of that left caucus, you are going to be an absolutely pivotal voice for Keir to keep largely on side to do this. So I'm going to find it fascinating to see how he navigates the eddies and currents of his party and the role that somebody like yourself is going to have in that.
Don't exaggerate my role. We've got a huge young generation of radicals.
The Gandalf of the British left.
Well, there's a whole new generation of radical socialists in Parliament now, incredibly creative. But I think Keir's going to have to go with a broad church approach. That's the first thing. And I think we need to be preparing for that second wave of policy making because the crisis is so deep. On the doorstep, what came across is that broken Britain concept. Nothing works. The NHS in crisis. In schools,
only 10 seats declared, and he's already working on the second phase of policy. You're putting 14 checks, and Keir doesn't even know yet, John.
The Bush Keir Starmer doesn't have to govern the Labour Party as a broad church in the sense that he has a majority potentially big enough that he can ignore the left of the party.
We shouldn't be talking about.
You do accept that,
Yes,
don't
but
you?
you shouldn't be.
You would have been better with a
the scale
narrow
of the problems
majority.
that we've got. We're not going to be able to overcome them in one period of office. We've got, by the time you get to that second year, you're staring down the barrel of another general election. So you've really got to be producing then, and then also giving people hope of what a second period of office would be. And the point that Andy's making, the vehicles are out there now. Give them the resources and we can deliver.
And I think the point that's being a bit missed in the conversation is the manifesto has more in it than any of the manifestos I stood on when I was in the New Labour. Rail. Wait a second though. Wait 1 second though, Trevor. You know, rail. One second. We never touched rail in those. You know, we never went near it. Just look at it now. This manifesto is talking of renationalisation. The energy market, Great British Energy, that is to be shaped. That is holding out the possibility of locally owned energy, cooperatively owned energy. That is exciting. The housing stuff we've talked about. I think there is more in the manifesto. They've not talked about it perhaps as much in the campaign, but there is lots of stuff there that will allow us as mayors to work with them and shape it. And actually, I would say, bring through stuff that the new Labour government should have done something about and didn't. For instance, re-regulating buses, which I've done in Greater Manchester. Now everywhere can do it in our manifesto. These may never get the Westminster attention or the kind of political world's attention, but these things really matter on the ground. And I think it's a manifesto that actually goes further, certainly than the 2001, 5 and 10 ones that we stood on.
Okay, may I just say that we're waiting for Nuneaton, first seat in the Midlands, classic weather seat. This one, wait and see, Marcus Jones, of course. Also waiting for Basildon and Billericay. We were expecting that to come shortly after.
Basildon and Billericay.
Still waiting for that.
আমার চেনা জায়গা।
It's Richard Holden's. First Conservative hold has just dropped as Rayleigh and Wickford. The first Conservative hold, Rayleigh and Wickford. Just tell you about Richard Holden, who is the chairman of the Conservative Party. 1 in 3 chance of not holding on to that seat is what the bookies were suggesting. Waiting for, what else are we waiting for? Broxbourne. That is quite late as well. Not sure what's going on there. Labour has gained Stroud and also held Jarrow and Gateshead East. So that's an update. And also waiting for our first seat
Stroud, Labour win.
As well, SNP, according to the exit poll, likely to very
Rayleigh and Wickford.
possibly as low as 10 seats. So that's the update where we are so far. Nuneaton, no boundary changes, declares relatively early. Still, it's 2 o'clock, relatively early, depends on your view. Labour should gain it. It was Labour 1992 to 2010, as you were. What was your point that you were making?
Ages.
But when you look at, I mean, in all honesty, when you saw the exit poll and you realised that, your party was going to be the party of government potentially for 2 terms, did you look back at 2019 and think, if we played it a little bit more middle of the road, then we could have been government already?
I was the person they always sent out for the exit polls, So in 2017 I went along, and again, everyone thought we were going to be crushed then, and we came level with Theresa May, basically. I had a Tory minister beside me, I can't remember who it was, but his face completely drained. I thought I was going to have to do compression on him or something like that. So they're tough. Then in the 2019 one, it was just all Brexit. It was just a nightmare. No matter what we did, we couldn't change the dial in the discussion, so it was Brexit. And our party was divided over it. Realistically, that was the problem with us, But again, my view is this, and that you might think I'm wrong. This is cumulative defeat by the Conservatives. first of all, austerity, fighting, and Osborne and whatever. Then Boris Johnson comes along, and to be honest, he's a congenital liar. And those images of the Queen burying her husband and they're partying at Number 10.
How do you feel when you see this guy, Jeremy Corbyn?
He's my friend. He's my friend and always will be. And if he wins tonight, I'll be arguing for him to be restored to the Labour whip. That's what I'll hope to do. That's what they did with Nye Bevan and others who lost the whip. But to finish my point, I think the turning point for the Conservatives was the Liz Truss budget. If Sunak had been elected rather than Liz Truss, I think he would have most probably had more of a chance of a run-in, and the losses wouldn't be as great. I still think they would have lost. But they lost the economic credibility of Liz Truss.
Jamie Claiborne,
From what I hear,
former Labour leader.
Labour sources saying to me that they think it's going to be difficult for them to.
It's a huge popular support. It's been there 40 years.
I know. I live in the constituency next door, and there has been so many Corbyn stickers and posters and things that I see just wandering around.
You had 1,000 people out.
There's a real irony here. It was the first general election I reported on, and you will remember this, Joe. Jeremy Corbyn fought that for Labour against a guy called Michael O'Halloran,
That's right,
who had left the Labour Party to join the SDP, and Corbyn came in for Labour, beating a defector from. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens tonight.
Hearing their throat in Nuneaton, as you can see. Waiting to hear from there. Blackpool South as well, we are hearing, is likely to declare very shortly. And the reason for that, interesting obviously because it's the Northwest. I'm sure you've been to Blackpool many times before, but also Nuneaton declaring. Here we go.
216. John Robert Homer, the Workers' Party, 967. Robin Adlington Howard, Reform UK, 9059. Marcus Jackson, the Conservative Party candidate, 11737.
Labour.
Steve Anthony Connicaw, the Green
I would have thought
Party.
Greens are going to beat them. So there you go. Conservatives into second place, a Labour gain there in the West Midlands. There are two
West
pages.
Midlands,
You see the two dots on
Labour,
the corner, that means there's a
15,000,
second page, but I don't think it's
216.
going to impact
Conservative
on
were
the
Mike
results
Class
there. It's
John
not changed
Face
since that started notoriety in 2015 when
11,737.
it was the first marginal to declare.
Rob Howard
It's going to the
Reform
Conservative Labour were not going to get close to being the biggest party, and that
Kate
Cameron was going to stay
Kandakar. Is
Prime
it a Kate
Minister. You can see that Jodie
Kandakar?
Whittaker has taken that seat. Beth.
Labour, another one coming to 12 now.
Red wall areas.
1-1.
Yeah, I mean that's given what the exit poll is, you would absolutely expect Nuneaton to change hands, and there it has. Marcus Jones was the former MP. He'll be glad to come into second place in that seat, given what's going on. But you know, symbolically, to come in second, not third, will be some crumbs of comfort for him, given what we've seen in other seats.
Just comment on turnout, because if I look at the turnout, 58.7.
Yeah.
For a seat like this, that is low.
No, and I think this is what this goes back to what we've been talking about, which is when you're looking at the seats, all the turnouts are looking, or the ones I've noticed, have looked slightly down. And I really think that one of the themes of this night, as we go through it, will be turnout lower, but majority really big.
Do you know what's
and that's the question of the mandate.
Is the number of sort of themes that have been discussed during the course of this campaign, that the numbers are kind of bearing out. And one of the kind of conversations have been, there's a real will after 14 years to get the Tories out, you know, to have change. There is a change election, but the deal hasn't been sold yet on Labour. If you're looking at the cumulative vote shares, the Tories are down 22% on the ones that we've seen so far. Massive kick to the Tories. Labour's only up 2 points.
Yeah.
Only up 2 points in 2019, which was not a high watermark.
No, it was not.
So
Labour
that
did
really
really
kind of
badly.
almost anecdotal.
Yes.
You know, we're not that enthusiastic about Labour yet, but we really want the Tories out. It does appear that these early figures are playing that out.
Actually down in some constituencies.
In some.
And that's what...
Hang on a minute, though, to turn around.
It wasn't...
That's quite an uneven...
But that's it, cumulative of all the ones we've seen.
Yeah, but this is a key seat, isn't it?
But to put it into context, if you look at Johnson's 80-seat majority in 2019, he got 43.6% of the vote. In 1997, Blair got 43.2% of the vote. In 1979, Thatcher got 43.9% of the vote. Yes, Theresa May got 42.3%.
We're likely to win on under 40%.
Yes, exactly. And so, if you think this is one of the historic landslides of 79 to 97 to 2019, actually, in which that was the biggest majority.
The reason for that, though, is we've almost got five parties polling now, haven't we? Which is, that gives... the Lib Dems are polling, Reform are polling.
Yes, but that's the point, isn't it? That
you had that in 2050
therefore,
as well.
the share...
Yes, but that's kind of the rise of the other.
They did. Okay.
The Lib Dems dropped off. No, wait a second. The Lib Dems dropped off.
Just to let you know that Jodie Gosling there is actually, she is the leader of North Warwickshire Council. She'll be stepping down from there, and apparently, just to let you know that Labour's lucky seat is Warwickshire North. They've never won an election without winning Warwickshire North, so we'll keep an eye on that for you. Let's talk about how some of the Conservatives' biggest names could fare tonight. Our chief political correspondent John Craig is in Surrey, where the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt is contesting the seat of Godalming and Ash, and Amanda Akas is in Welwyn, where the Defence Secretary Grant Shapps is defending his seat of Welwyn and Hatfield. Bear with me just 1 second, John, if you would, because I want to go to John Craig first of all. Is he going to keep his seat?
Doesn't look like it, Kay. All the signs are that Jeremy Hunt, the son of an admiral, is going to sail off into the political sunset tonight with possibly a heavy defeat by the Liberal Democrats, although he insisted during the campaign he thought it'd be 1,000 to 1,500 votes either way. The exit poll that we broadcast suggests a decent win for the Liberal Democrats here. This has been a target seat for the Liberals and the Liberal Democrats for many, many years, going back to when it was Southwest Surrey, and it was represented by first Virginia Bottomley and then by Mr. Hunt. Now, there have been some quite small majorities for the Tories in the old Southwest Surrey seat. What's happened here, Kay, is that they've carved this seat into two constituencies. Mr. Hunt is fighting Godalming and Ash. The other one is called Farnham and Borden. Some here think perhaps he made a mistake in opting for Godalming and Ash because it always looked a bit more marginal than the other seat. He has worked so hard, though, to try and hold this seat. He has campaigned tirelessly when you might have expected a Chancellor of the Exchequer to be in London, taking part in TV debates, interviews and so on. He has spent the last 6 weeks pounding the streets of this leafy constituency in the Surrey Hills in a desperate hope of trying and cling on. If he does cling on, it will be an amazing personal triumph for him. And of course, from what we're hearing, he'll be one of the big beasts left in the Tory party in Parliament, one of the grown-ups, if you like, experienced politician. If, on the other hand, it's the end for Jeremy Hunt, he can look back on a 19-year career in Parliament in which he's held 4 cabinet posts, including 2 of the so-called great offices of state, Foreign Secretary and Chancellor of the Exchequer. All the signs are, looking at what's happening around the country, Mr. Hunt is probably going to lose here.
Yeah, just also seeing, well, I've got you before we move on to Amanda, a Liberal Democrat source saying school's out for summer, but Gillian Keegan were confident of clinching a win in Chichester, making her the first cabinet minister of the night to lose her seat. Quoting a Lib Dem source here, this seat has been Conservative for 100 years. Winning here is an extraordinary achievement which has unseated the Education Secretary. A response to that, John?
Sorry, Kay, I didn't quite hear that.
Okay, basically, the Lib Dems are saying that Gillian Keegan's lost.
Yes. Well, you're right, that's been a safe Tory seat. It was Andrew Tyree who chaired the Treasury Select Committee for many years, and that is a shock. She will not have been expecting that. The point about this seat is that, I mean, people have said, and in fact Mr Hunt has said, oh, it might be another Portillo moment. Think about Michael Portillo's defeat in '97. That was a shock. Gillian Keegan is a shock. Mr Hunt himself has talked about the prospect of losing here. He told his children a few weeks ago, he told us, Daddy might not be Chancellor of the Exchequer, he might not be an MP. He knows he's in a tough battle here, and if Mr Hunt does lose, it won't be a great shock. Yes, I think Gillian Keegan going is a shock. I mean, this area also, like Chichester, has been Conservative since 1910. Classic blue wall. I mean, you drive around here and you can imagine it's the £5 million homes and so on. The majority of people either own their own home, they own cars and so on. We are talking one of the most affluent areas of the country. And if the Lib Dems do win here, that is a massive scalp for them.
Okay, thanks. Amanda Akehouse, Welling. Looks as though the Defence Secretary Grant Shapps is likely to lose his seat.
Yes, indeed. So he's held this seat for 19 years, and during that time he served in the cabinet of every single Conservative Prime Minister except for Theresa May. Famously, last year he had 5 different cabinet posts, ending up as Defence Secretary. But certainly he's someone who is well known as a campaigner, former Tory party chair, well known for having a long spreadsheet of the views of different Tory MPs, which he used to help get Boris Johnson elected. And indeed, he's been tipped as a possible future Conservative leader himself. Certainly, even just a few weeks ago, there was lots of talks about him as one of the likely contenders. But certainly now, given the results of the exit poll in particular, that doesn't seem that likely. Only a 6% chance, according to that, of him holding onto this seat. And his majority is fairly narrow in the context of the pretty dire polling we've seen. So he's only got a majority of just under 11,000. Labour need just a swing of just over 10% to win here. Indeed, it seems very likely that that's what they managed to do. In fact, this is a seat, though, that they did hold back under the Blair years.
Okay, for now, thank you. Ed is here. Ed, is that your food, love? What have you got?
Yeah, so I heard you've got a poke bowl coming. They asked me what I wanted. There's some pizza on offer, but this is, I think, some chicken goujons. So there you go. Can I say 5 minutes until it's halfway through? We've been on air. 5 hours.
And
5 hours.
food decoration.
It's flying by. Lee,
coming up in just a second.
Great.
Next few moments, Ed.
It really does.
Ed, we're hearing, and you'll want to know this, Trevor. Basildon and Billericay, it's been confirmed that is a recount. Now, the reason that we're interested in Basildon and Billericay is because it's Richard Holden's seat, and it was literally bolted on. He was guaranteed to get that seat.
Parachuted in.
Yeah. I've been fed up with saying parachute. I was trying to think of another way of saying it, but we can go with that. And there is a recount.
Close. We'll keep an eye on that one. Do you want charts?
Yes, please. Love a chart, as you know. Can't believe you had to ask me.
Look at the map first of all. Okay, look, just you can see how we are starting to get a little bit, because before I was telling you it was all about what was happening in the northeast, but now look, you can see Rowley and Wickford over there, and Harrogate as well. We're starting to get some stories telling us a bit of the other dynamics, the geographical dynamics, the demographic dynamics around the country. Let me focus first of all on Nuneaton. Okay, I want us to look at Nuneaton because this is kind of interesting here. Again, what we're doing is we're comparing exit poll results with the eventual results. We're not going to do this all night, but it's just getting you a sense of whether that number that we've been focusing on quite so much does look good. And it looks pretty good here in Nuneaton because look at that, 36 in the exit poll, the eventual results 36.9. Okay, so that's pretty close. Conservatives 27, the eventual result 28.5, so slightly stronger. And then Reform more or less the same. So that's a result that looks pretty similar to the exit poll. So again, if you're looking at the exit poll, wondering whether it looks kind of reliable, This result in Nuneaton, of course, a former kind of bellwether constituency. Remember that? Ed Miliband really wanted to win it, but didn't get to win it, and that was really significant back in 2015. But have a look at this. Okay, so Nuneaton, what's interesting here about that Labour vote share, is it as high as you might have expected, given that they are winning there? And that's the story here that we're starting to see evolving. Labour winning seats without necessarily having enormous majority shares of the vote. And why is that happening? It's partly because Reform is eating into that Conservative vote. Just look at those two numbers together. Reform really having an impact, even though it's in third place here in Nuneaton. So that's kind of interesting. Also, think about places like Harrogate. So obviously the Lib Dems there, picking up the Harrogate there from the Conservatives. Okay, but again, Lib Dems there at the top, okay, increasing their share of the vote a touch. Conservatives down a lot. But look, again, Reform sandwiched in the middle, eating into the Conservative vote. And this is interesting as well. Look at the Labour Party down in fourth place, actually seeing the share of the vote falling. Okay, so is this some evidence of tactical voting here in Harrogate that gets the Lib Dems in there? So that's kind of quite a striking thing. But one thing that we've been trying to do is, again, look at the exit poll results, work out whether they are kind of online with what we're actually seeing. I'm going to show you two charts that really underline that. First of all, this is showing you Labour and just how the results are coming in versus the exit poll. Anything above the bar shows the results are better than expected. Anything below the bar shows that they are a little bit worse than expected. And it's kind of a little bit all over the place, but more or less, I'd say it's more or less accurate so far when it comes to the Labour numbers. But have a look at this for the Conservatives. And most of these are northeast constituencies. So again, it's telling you one aspect here, one geographical focus. But look at how many of these bars are above the line. The Conservatives doing a touch better, whether it's in Sunderland, whether it's in Blyth, in Gateshead as well, doing a touch better in all of these constituencies around the northeast than the exit poll was suggesting. So does that suggest that the exit poll is actually not necessarily not necessarily displaying quite as much Conservative performance as we might have expected? Final thing to note, okay, so again, we're just looking at the average swings so far. And earlier on I was showing you it was kind of getting up towards kind of like 12, 13, 14%. Actually now, the swing from the Conservative Party to the Labour Party is more or less around the 10%, 10.3%, which puts it basically bang in line with what the Labour Party achieved in 1997. So looking like a swing so far of about 10.3%. I won't go into it. There's a whole thing I want to tell you about swings, swingometers, how much we can rely on them, because actually this does look like one of those elections where the swingometer isn't necessarily telling you the full story and why we need to show you it in different ways. But I feel like have I used up my chart quotient? Maybe I haven't, because
we're just looking at Leeds Western Pudsey, which of course is Rachel Reeves' seat.
Hey business owners, ever wondered what happens when you take a payment? Well, let me show you. Hi, I'm Paloma Faye. There's 100,000 things to do on Get Your Guide, including my exclusive magical music tour of London. Discover, book, and make memories at getyourguide.co.uk.
Anyway, have a look. Talk me through those figures.
So what have we got here? Leeds West.
Rachel Reeves.
Rachel Reeves, obviously, soon to be Shadow Chancellor, soon. One suspects to be the first female Chancellor. What's interesting about this? Okay, so first of all, Conservative share down 25.1%. Reform up though, 13.5%. But just have a look at this, okay? So you're not seeing a massive shift to the Labour Party. Obviously, this is kind of, in safe Labour territory. But you're not seeing a massive swift kind of shift across to the Labour Party. And that, again, is going to be the question. And there's quite some interesting charts I can show you about the efficiency of the Labour vote. Is Labour able to win a lot of seats, which it looks like they are heading towards winning a lot of seats, that's what the exit poll suggests, without necessarily increasing their share of the vote dramatically? Because that's, so far, it's not going up dramatically.
We've got to be calculating.
Telford.
Oh, sorry.
Just to be
Labour
calculating
gain,
anything
Telford.
particularly that we can see from London yet.
Beth had a question.
No, it's just that's the whole point of the Labour
Lahore,
strategy. It's
Barnsley
been to
North,
not pile
Lahore,
up. They've
Lead
been trying
West,
to
and
not
Goods.
pile up the vote in areas where they're already winning, and they've been trying to pile up votes in marginal seats. So that is not a surprise to me, because that's part of the strategy. But I'm going to shut up because there's a more important person that's about to come on.
In fact, he's joining us now, the Mayor of London, Labour's Sadiq Khan. I'm sure you'll want to speak to our Manchester Mayor as well in just a moment or two. There you go. In fact, why don't you two just have a chat? Go on.
Yeah, a little.
How are you doing? Can I just give Andy a virtual hug?
Well, you might not want to when you hear what I said about London earlier, Sadiq. There was a bit of a jibe going on about first, second, and third cities, but I won't reopen it.
Yeah, he said Manchester was the first city and you were second.
Well, Andy's got a great sense of humour.
How's London
He
looking
has to.
today?
He's an Everton supporter.
Can I just say, Andy, I've been knocking on doors in communities we've not engaged in for 20 years.
Yep.
It's been quite remarkable. We're delivering leaflets on some streets, Andy, that we've not delivered in for 20 years with any confidence and hope. In central, inner and outer London, it's been quite remarkable. Conversations that you and I remember from the 90s and noughties. Our people are listening to us and people are voting for us. And I think it's going to be a great night, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it already is in some ways, isn't it? You know, just to be in this position, we've not been here for a long time. Do you think that effect is going on in London because people dislike the rhetoric of recent times, the division, some of the hate? You know, is London sort of, if you like, sort of taking a decisive stand against all of that? Feels like it would be.
I tell you what's interesting is, you know, and Trevor and Beth will recognise this as well. In 2015, 2017, 2019, people were unhappy with the Conservatives, but not enough to give us their vote. I think what Keir Starmer's done over the last 4.5 years is transformed our party so people feel comfortable giving us their vote now. But also, I think, you know, Beth is spot on. What we've done in this campaign is actually not work those seats that are already Labour. Our ground campaign in Labour seats has been basically absent because we've been working in those seats. We've got to win to form a government. And when you hear figures of 410 Labour MPs potentially, a majority of 170, I think Keir Starmer's been vindicated for that campaign. But you're right, Andy, people are angry with this government. A lot of those people have voted for Labour in London, and I think across the country, some may have voted Reform. And I think our task over the next 5 years, Keir Starmer's task, the Labour Party's task, the government's task, is also to win over those people who currently vote Reform, to give them the confidence to vote Labour in 4 or 5 years' time. I agree.
How do you solve a problem like Reform if you're Keir Starmer and indeed whoever might be the next leader of the Conservative Party?
Well, what you'll see Keir do tomorrow outside number 10 Downing Street, speak to the nation, all the nation, not just those that voted Labour, but those that didn't vote Labour as well. He's going to try and heal our country and bring our country together. We had 14 years of communities, of generations, of people being pitted against one another, Remain, Brexit, North, South, old, young. What Keir will do is bring us all together because, frankly speaking, we've got to come together now because our country deserves more. You'll see a Prime Minister under-promising and over-delivering. I think it's really important.
Just do a question.
Can I just say that we're waiting for Ed Davies' seat to declare momentarily, and Liam Atherton as well.
Yeah, it's Ruth Davidson, Sadiq. Good to speak to you again. You and Andy have quite a bit in common, not just your mayoralty positions now, but that you were both in government. And then when the party went into opposition, when Jeremy Corbyn became leader, I know you supported him in that. Andy didn't. He ran himself. You chose to leave Parliament. You chose to not be MPs while the party was in opposition. Now that it looks like you're on the cusp of government again, is it something you would wish to return to?
Well, actually, I voted for Andy in 2015 to lead the Labour Party. But look, I'm quite clear. I think if the 19th century was a century of empire, 20th century a century of nations, the 21st century is about cities and mayors. And Andy and I both met Keir Starmer on a number of occasions over the last few months. Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, Angela Rayner, the Shadow Cabinet are all committed to devolving more powers and resources to cities and regions across the country. That includes London, includes Greater Manchester, includes Merseyside and elsewhere.
I've watched you speak. I've stood beside you while you've been speaking enough to know when you go into full politician mode, and when you get the hands out, that's full politician mode. And you didn't answer the question, which wasn't, do you like your job now? I get that you like your job now. The question was, would you go back to Parliament for a different job. Now you're back in government.
No, not at all.
No, kumai tegde.
And one of the reasons I'm so
Duita
excited, and that's why I'm using my hands, Ruth, is because we've had a massive victory tonight. A majority of
Labour against Swindon, not
to work
from
with this great Prime Minister in waiting.
I think that's a change in politics, though. You know, people have talked about
London Mayor Sadiq Khan, show future MP or future Prime Minister or চিন্তা করতেছি
loving these roles. You actually do things.
সে অফিসারে প্রাইম মিনিস্টার হওয়ার চান্স আছে
It's like the Westminster set sometimes can't get its head round why these jobs are small.
বরিস তো লন্ডনে মেয়র থেকে প্রাইম মিনিস্টার হয়েছিল
I've never been an MP. I've never sat
ইও প্রাইম মিনিস্টার হওয়ার চান্স আছে
a devolved administration. And people say,
সাদিক খানেরও প্রাইম মিনিস্টার হওয়ার চান্স আছে
go back in, you won't want to go in the front line. And the answer is actually no, because politics happens all over the United Kingdom. It doesn't just happen on the green benches.
I think we would both feel though that we're going to have an era of really big profile on cities devolution. Sadiq, that's what we both. Growth won't come without it. Can I ask Sadiq? Sadiq.
You can. Let me just tell people what they're looking at. Lee, which is Lee in Atherton, the seat that you used to have, waiting for that declaration. South West London, Ed Davies' seat as well. Let me tell you that Labour has gained Blackpool South, you're saying, but it was already a Labour seat after that scandal with Scott Benton. Thank you very much indeed. There was a by-election, but for the purposes
Labour gained Blackpool South, Swindon North, Conservative hold, Castle Point.
So we are saying Blackpool South has won that seat. Waiting
Total is Labour 19 seat, Conservative 2, Lib Dem 2, other 0, other 0. 19টা রেজাল্ট হয়ে গেছে 19 20 21 22 23টার আসনের রেজাল্ট হয়েছে এর মধ্যে 19টাই হয়েছে লেবারে আর 60টা হয়েছে দুইটা কনজারভেটিভ দুইটা লেফট ড্যাম
A momentary lapse of judgment.
Yes, I am, because here's Lee. Yes, I am. Here we go. Here's Lee.
I never got. That's not.
Is it not?
Sorry, here's a declaration.
Is it not Lee?
সেটা হরেতে যখন 10-12 জন টানা নামের ক্যান্ডিডেট দাঁড়াইছিল
poll for the election parliament for Lee and Atherton on Thursday the 4th of July 2024. I, James Winterbottom, being the deputy returning officer at the above election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Buckley Craig Allen, the English Democrats, putting England first, 376. Jones Amelia, the Green Party, 1,653. Platt Joanne Marie, commonly known as Joe Platt, Labour and Cooperative Party, 19,971. Thomas Stuart David, Liberal Democrats,
19,000 ভোট পাইছে 19,000 এর উপরে
William, the Conservative Party candidate, 6,480.
Yeah, you know what was 6,000 paise conservative.
It was fantastic, honestly. It makes me feel whole again that Lee's gone Labour. Honestly, it feels so good.
You have to declare an interest. She worked for you.
She did, and I got great affection for Jo. She's been, I say, brilliant for me. But she's worked hard, and there she is. She gets her reward. That is just a great result.
Again.
Yeah, yes, I would have expected that. And as everyone has said, and I would say, I understand why people feel disillusioned. I understand why they kind of voted in the way that they have. And as I think Sadiq was saying, there's a job to be done to bring people back, and we need to work at that. But that is a really good result. The Tories won this seat by a couple of thousand last time. Almost 20,000 Labour votes there. Joe Platt deserves every single one.
Do you want to listen to her?
Thank you to the people of Lee. And let's hear from Joe.
Returning officer, electoral services, council staff and the police for their hard work in ensuring today's smooth operation.
উনি এমপি হয়ে গেছে
And I also extend my gratitude to the people of Lee, Atherton, Tilsley, Goldburn,
Lebanon.
Lowton and Astley. After 14 years of Conservative failure, you've demanded change. We ran this election as a changed Labour Party. Thank
Colchester
you
from
for your
Conservative.
trust in us to change the country.
लेबर गेन गर्से कोल्चेस्टर हो कंजर्वेटिव आसन फैली से तरह
We will fight for economic security, cheaper bills, safer streets, the NHS back on its feet, secure borders and better opportunities for our children. I do want to acknowledge James, the outgoing MP. Though our politics differ, he always held these towns close to his heart. Thank you for your service and for representing this great constituency. Losing this seat in 2019 was deeply painful, not just for me personally, but for those who desperately need a Labour government. It was a moment of reflection and realisation for us all. Over the last 4 years, under this Conservative government, things have got worse. The Labour Party has listened, learned from past mistakes and developed policies that speak directly to our towns. The people of this constituency deserve a government that has their back, supports their aspirations and enables grassroots regeneration. Labour is ready to be that government, building on the pride and potential of our towns. We are committed to working with you, hand in hand, to bring about the change that is so desperately needed. But I want to thank my family, my mum, my dad, my sisters, and especially my long-suffering partner, Ian, who can't be with us here today, but Ian, this is for you. Also a heartfelt thank to my 3 children and Kian, who's here with us today. Another thanks goes to the Labour Party team, Claire, my agent, for keeping me organised, to Paul and Sam for managing the campaign, and to the Lee and Atherton constituency Labour Party, thank you for leading a professional and positive campaign. Your efforts are the foundation of this success, and it belongs to each and every one of you.
So, one or two things to update you on. Conservatives have held Broxbourne. Should have come in around about midday. Midnight. Reform are less of a factor there, which means the betting market thought that the Conservatives would hold on. Never bet against a bookie, is what my dad always used to say, and it looks as though that has proven to be the case. Thank you very much indeed. Vale of Glamorgan, former Wales Secretary, that has become a Labour gain. Vale of Glamorgan, first result in from Wales, is a Labour gain. And Colchester, now many of you will, or some of you will know, Colchester was James Cracknell, the Olympic rower.
And what did he say? What did he call the Conservative?
I'm sure it wasn't a swear word.
Yeah.
I can do it on the podcast, but not
swearing on television.
I checked the word and it was fine what she said, but some of the other words we can't. Yeah, I did check.
They say our neck of the woods, snitches get stitches. Don't talk me in.
Yeah, Colchester.
First time I've ever heard a candidate refer to his party's campaign as a shower of.
Yeah, quick last word from the London Mayor. You wanted to ask him something?
Yeah, if Sadiq is still there, he'll remember.
29 and 3.
1998, when there was a referendum to.
429 and 43.
Those who were in favour of it basically
Norwich South.
The mayoralty to have control
Labours.
of a lot of things, education.
Britgate Labours.
Now, the problem was that the then Labour government didn't trust Johnson to run that. But are you
Norwich
now
South.
thinking that
Runcorn.
with a new Labour government, that the next step is for you to take over other sectors, including, for example, some aspects of health?
Yeah, I think Trevor, one of the things that I think Andy, Steve Rotherham, Tracy Brabin, other mayors across the country.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Hartlepool declaration. I'm so sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, they're all coming in now. Red car.
Hartlepool. It's now Hartlepool.
Okay, so this is
Hartlepool
the
nagi
Hartlepool declaration coming out. Oh, great news then for Anna Turner. She's
Hartlepool.
regained
Borough
red
Council.
card. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying that red car became blue car. I think you'll find it's gone back to red car. Here we go.
The number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Jonathan James Frederick Brash, Labour Party, 16,414, duly elected. Thomas William Dudley, commonly known as Tommy Dudley, Workers' Party of Britain, 248. Samantha Jane Lee, commonly known as Sam Lee, Independent, 895. Peter James Moore, Liberal Democrats, 572.
Oh, there you go.
Gillian Wendy Mortimer,
So that
commonly known
is
as
Lee Anderson. Lee Anderson's one.
candidate.
Lee Anderson has gained Ashfield from the Conservatives. You're both looking at me in stunned silence.
No, I thought we were listening to the count, so I thought we weren't supposed to be talking,
Yeah,
sorry.
no. Reform have gained Ashfield. In other words,
That's
Lee
their first game, isn't it?
Anderson.
Yeah, there's been a couple that have come in, because there's a glut of seats that are all coming in now, as people are pushing the ticker on seats.
Yes.
Two of the ones I wanted to pick out were the two Barnsley
And
seats,
he's about
Barnsley
to
North
speak. Let's
and
listen.
South.
Massive thank you to all the staff that's been here tonight helping. They worked incredibly hard, and all the people that's worked throughout this election campaign. Special thanks to Ashfield District Council. But the biggest thanks of the night goes to my wonderful team over there who have stood by my side and watched me being grumpy over the past 6 weeks. They've been fantastic, and I could not have done it without them. I stood in this town, my hometown, 4.5 years ago, as a Conservative candidate and won. And I won comfortably.
Lib Dem'e file isn't. Lib Dem'e pass East Midland, Ashfield. এখানে কনজারভেটিভও ফেল, লেবারও ফেল, অন্যান্য দলের সবাই ফেল। লেবারে মাত্র 11,553, have 17,062. Lib Dems, referendum.
First time Reform have ever
Reform
been
the
able to
first
say
person.
that they will have an MP in the House of Commons. They thought that it was going to be that man Nigel Farage, but no, it's Lee Anderson. You're shocked.
I'm not so shocked. There was a rumour, wasn't there, earlier that it wasn't going to happen.
Well,
এর সিট পাওয়া মানে তো বুঝতেই পারছেন ভিউয়ার্স। নাইজেল ফারাজ, নাইজেল ফারাজের সিট পাইলি সে একটা।
In the past, but under all governments, clearly Reform are picking up a lot of support. So these are the areas that were promised that they would be levelled up. And as I say, I think there's a sort of a vote that is sort of coming through as a Reform vote, which I think reflects that.
Conservative হইতে এবার ফাতুই পান না।
Symbolically, this is a big moment, right? Because
Conservative এবার লেবারের ফাতুই পান না। এত পরাডুবি হলো
and now
Conservative।
Lee Anderson, who defected from the Conservatives to Reform, he was a deputy party chair put in by Rishi Sunak. People, when he defected, thought, go to Reform.
2017 নাকি ইলেকশন হইলো
With a big vote, absolutely amazing. And he said there will be. He said it just then. There will be. This election will be a record, and that's what he said.
Andrea Leadsom before, and I asked her about this. She acknowledged that they should have taken them on more. For instance, if the Conservatives in Parliament had taken on Reform over its position on the NHS, I think people would have understood Reform's position on the NHS. Currently, I don't think they do, and that is their failure. And this is
even before that. The idea that Lee Anderson was made a deputy chairman of the Tory party when he was being a right old pain in the backside.
Well, that's why he was
to
made
people that
deputy chairman.
exactly. It's the appeasement doesn't work. You know, you've got to challenge them. You've actually got to take them on and fight them on the issues and see what they actually have to do. And having a parliamentary group might actually expose what they believe, what their party positions are, and some of the things that people care about. Because at the moment, we don't know. They're a blank sheet of paper to anybody.
This is a sick of politics.
Okay, let's bring in Charles Walker and Anne-Marie Trevelyan, should we? Hello to you both. Interested to see your immediate reaction to Reform gaining its first ever seat in the mother of all parliaments. Anne-Marie, to you first of all. So yes, interesting to see that Lee
এই
has
আসলে
indeed
যদি রিফর্ম
been
পাস
that
করে
six
থাকে
obviously
এই জায়গাটা কি
Mark
তবে
charismatic
বুঝতে
and a
পারছেন
very
ভিউয়ার্স
front man for reform. Up here in the northeast, what we're seeing is reform, as you said, coming second. It's a very loud voice for reform. It's you know, in Labour facing and now winning seats here, they're taking Labour vote. What that reform message up here on the northeast doorsteps is about illegal migration. It's sorting it out. My worry for them, to your point about what do they stand for and what will we hear from them in Parliament, is that they have taken away the one party that was actually delivering what they wanted, which was the Conservatives. So I think it's going to be a challenge for them to persuade Labour to do something other than
35টা হয়েছে লেবার 3টা কনজারভেটিভ রিফর্ম একটা লেফট ডেম
I'd just
2টা
like to point out, because you were looking at the exit poll, the Broxbourne
রিফর্মে হয়েছে
constituency
একটা
has just been held with a majority of
গ্রিন পার্টি এখনো পাইছে না
3,500. The exit poll had Labour taking Broxbourne when it came out at 10 o'clock. So I'm really interested in the work you're doing on the exit polls. It doesn't seem to be as accurate as it has been in previous general elections.
Well, let me just say, if I may please, Charles Walker, that the Conservative vote was down 27 points in Broxbourne and the Reform vote was up 20 points, and then it hadn't stood there previously.
Yeah, but the point I'm making is that the exit poll that you've been focusing on and saying the Tories are doing a bit better than the exit poll suggested had Broxbourne going Labour, and Broxbourne's been held by about 3,500 votes.
I think on the exit poll and just the way the seats fall, we are seeing some individual results that aren't reflected in that. So we've, in the time that we've been talking, in the last half an hour, we've had both the Barnsley seats come in that were down to be reform in that poll. They were supposed to be part of the 13. One of them's been held by Labour by 8,000 votes, and one of them's been held by Labour by 5,000 votes. Now that would indicate what Beth was saying earlier about the campaign to make sure that the votes get piled up by Labour in the right places where they're under pressure. So we might be seeing that while the vote share is right from the exit... being applauded.
Olive?
Yes, darling.
I've decided to become a nudist.
Gosh, that's a surprise. All veg, yet so very tasty.
Gosh, surprisingly, just veg.
Nothing beats taking some life admin off the list.
Do not compare!
That they've lost one by 8,000 and one by 5,000, and that's a pretty big whack.
Anne-Marie Trevelyan, I mean, when you saw this exit poll, your heart must have sunk, eh? So I think it reflects what will definitely be a tough night for us as Conservatives. Not as bad as perhaps some have said, and I think we're seeing this 36%, 26% turnout rather than something, a gap that's more.
Oh, this tulip, my God.
At an individual seat level, and it's good to hear about Broxbourne that
Tulip,
those shifts
our Bangladeshi MP.
Hard work on the ground, it's the incumbency, and indeed it's you know, the effort across the piece. So I think we will have to wait and see as the evening goes on how that rolls out. So you can see, but you know,
Tulip Siddiqui, Bangabandhu Natni.
And we will need to regroup and really pull together on what those key policies are, which you know speak to our constituents, and we know what they are. And we need to make sure that we.
Tulip Fashui aise lage.
How much is this down to trustonomics, would you say, Anne-Marie Trevelyan? I remember chatting to you when I was in Downing Street, and there were
North London
that
থেকে
Liz Truss would be losing her title.
Prime Minister lage haat milailo, haak dilailo. Tulip e.
When I get back, you said absolutely.
Our MP Tulip. Bangladeshi MP. Tulip Siddiqui.
Interestingly, on the doorsteps in my campaign, that wasn't what was raised. Issues around migration, cost of living, going forward. Champions real anxiety about the risk of tax cuts. Small businesses in my patch very worried about what Labour might do.
Aure babare, former Prime Minister loge lagaisen picture tula hone.
Era was not something that was raised with me at all, interestingly.
Okay, Charles Walker, just hearing that Torsten Bell, Chief Executive of the Resolution Foundation, has been elected in Swansea West, former head of policy for Ed Miliband. The Conservatives, 5th.
Yeah, not a great result that. But just going back to Lee Anderson, the Conservative Party should never have entertained him as the vice chairman.
আজকে নিউজ রাত্রে সারা রাত চলবে আজ সাবান ইয়ানি চা খাবো চা লেবার এসেছে কালকে প্রধানমন্ত্রী লেবার ক্ষমতা চা খাবো
As far as Swansea is concerned, look, it really doesn't matter whether you're coming 5th, 3rd or 4th or 2nd in a seat if you're not going to win it. And Swansea is a seat that we were never ever going to win.
Charles, when you reflect on the campaign and the months running up to it, what do you think were the big mistakes? Because I know you felt very strongly about the divisions within the Conservative Party.
I mean, look, no campaign runs like clockwork. The biggest mistake was having the polling day on July the 4th, not sometime in November, December. It is clear that Nigel Farage has ignited reform by his return to frontline politics, and that has done us enormous damage, and there's no hiding place from that. It's a great shame that we went early, and we didn't benefit from what I suspect will be interest rate cuts over the coming months. And the fact that Nigel Farage
new Prime Minister.
With Donald Trump.
Are you angry with Rishi Sunak about that this has been a massive miscalculation? Are you angry with Rishi Sunak because of what's happened to many of your colleagues because of the decision?
I'm not angry with Rishi Sunak.
আমাদের উষ্ণার আলীর খবর কি?
Fond of the Prime Minister. I think that it was a strategic error to go early.
টিউলিপের তো দেখি নিলাম টিউলিপ পাস করে লিছে
Will be picked over in the coming weeks, and that post-mortem will be done. But I'm so tired of being angry. Politics.
টিউলিপে যেভাবে প্রাইম মিনিস্টার লগে মিলাইলো লাগে তো তাই মিনিস্টার হয়ে যাব এবছর পার্লামেন্টে বাংলাদেশি বংশোদ্ভূতকেও মন্ত্রী হতে চলেছে আমার কাছে লাগতেছে মিনিস্ট্রির দায়িত্ব পাইলিতে পারে টিউলিপে
Labour has gained Rushcliffe, which was Ken Clark's old seat, stepped down in 2019, waiting for a declaration.
Camden, the Camden is
that was
Camden Hampstead. Oh, the Sheikh Rehana দেখা যাচ্ছে
meantime, let's bring in Mark.
পেছনে শেখ রেহানা টিউলিপের মাও আইছে এখানে দেখছি
London, there he is. We heard the applause as he came in, Mark. Hi.
Yep, Keir Starmer is in the House or in the Camden Council offices where we are, and he looks very happy, understandably. It's an enormous night for him, and as the next few hours unfold, it will become very clear the responsibility that he now will have to take over. But for the moment, he's worried about his own seat here. Not really worried about it. He's defending, I think, 27,000. He got 64% of the vote last time. So that's another reason for the smile you see there. And his wife, Victoria, there with him, with Labour members, all very happy. And he'll be speaking very shortly. A point worth making here is that he's pulled off this extraordinary recovery for the party.
এই দেখেন টিউলিপের অবস্থা
As Beth was saying earlier, in 2019 under Jeremy Corbyn, Labour
এই এতক্ষণ মেয়ে কি রাজনীতিতে ইনভলভ
their worst result since the 1935 election. So in 5 years, he has turned the party round, and how. But it's not going to be an easy job. Tamara Cohen is with me, and there will be those who say that this is more an anti-Tory vote than it is a pro-Keir Starmer, pro-Labour vote.
They will, but that is very much pushed back on by Labour and by the team around Keir Starmer, who we now are almost certain will be our Prime Minister in the morning, and has just arrived here with his wife Victoria, both of them very much looking on a high, and we will be hearing from him here in the next little while. But first reaction as these results come in, showing really big swings to Labour, and of course for a really stunning result, their first majority from opposition in 27 years. He's pulled it off, and even 3 years ago, we know he contemplated quitting. They lost a by-election, Hartlepool, all looked so bleak, even 2 years into his leadership. But now, having transformed the party, and I think he will be making that point specifically here to say that he transformed the party. It's not accidental, it wasn't just the Conservatives did a bad job. I think his allies are very keen to stress his role in turning things around, and many people thought that would be the work
Gentleman
of many
Rochdale
years.
is about to declare, let's see what's going to happen with George Galloway.
The election of a Member of Parliament for Rochdale on Thursday,
Leighton and Wanstead.
2024. I, Steve Rumlow, being the acting returning officer at the above election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at this election is as follows. Paul Simon Ellison, the Conservative Party, 4,273. George Galloway, Workers' Party, 11,508.
Ja, schon ein George Galloway hat das.
Let's see. They seem very happy.
Michael David Howard, Reform UK, 6,773. Andrew John Kelly, Liberal Democrats, 2,816. Martin David Sabin, Green Party, 1,212.
Rochdale tycker jag ska säga. Rochdale det är George Galloway.
Paul War, Labour and Cooperative Party.
Rochdale får se Kento.
Paul War has won. So George Galloway defeated and felt that he didn't need to, as a result, go onto the podium to hear the you're offended by that.
I'm not offended by it. I think it's true to form. I mean, we've seen George Galloway move around the country. He is very good at exploiting a single issue, starting a new party with a new name. We've seen him win in by-elections. We've also seen him not then continue to take the seat in the next following general election. I think what's really interesting about this seat is this was where a lot of the conversation about how would the Muslim vote affect Labour came from this by-election that was, earlier in the year. We then saw that play out in some of the local elections in May, and particularly around the mayoral elections. So we heard your reporter in Birmingham talk about that, and if you look at the boxes that came out of Birmingham Yardley, Jess Phillips' seat, she would have lost that on that vote as it was projected. So there was huge concern within Labour about what that would do, and they moved very quickly to shore up these seats. The fact that this has gone back to Labour, the fact that it's Paul Waugh, who is a candidate who's from Rotherham, but had come to Westminster, part of when he stood to be the by-election candidate, didn't win this election, was that he was he'd gone London, he'd gone a bit London, and he was coming back, and then the Labour candidate had said some things and wasn't allowed to, had their support withdrawn. He then became the candidate for the general. This is an urbane former journalist, not somebody that's taken a particularly strong view on Gaza. So the fact that he's won it and taken it back off of Galloway, I think is quite significant and will ease a lot of fears within Labour for some of the other seats.
Swinney is in Perth.
Also,
Just have a look at these. Just bear with me there.
Okay, sorry.
John Swinney just arriving in Perth.
Yes, that's a slightly redrawn seat. He sits in the Scottish parliamentary equivalent of this Perth and Kinross seat that Pete Wishart is the was the sitting SNP MP for. He is the longest serving MP in Scotland. He's held his seat since I think it's maybe 92. He's been there a while. He had a strong challenger in Luke Graham, and with the boundary redraws, it was looking quite good for the Conservatives. All the indications that I'm getting is that Pete Wishart has held on.
Okay, it's just on one of our pivotal seat moments. Wrexham has just been lost from the Conservatives. Labour have taken that. Now that was the point where Conservatives were going to lose the overall majority when Wrexham goes. So that was just one of our pivotal seats. And we also have it that the Lib Dems are saying they think that they have taken Henley. That was on their 33rd on their targets. I think Boris Johnson stood in Henley once, did he?
He most certainly did.
Yeah.
Back with us, Rochdale.
Back here, and a big result in Greater Manchester, Rochdale, which was lost at a by-election. Paul Waugh, known to many people down here, a brilliant journalist, but a Rochdale lad. I've been with him in Rochdale. He's just well known there.
What do you make of the fact that George Galloway was not on the stage to hear the result?
Oh no, Rochdale is
He's come in
Manchester.
and he threatened to challenge me at the mayoral election. He claimed he'd save Rochdale Football Club. He claimed he'd open a new maternity unit. He claimed Rochdale was neglected. If you go to the centre of Rochdale, the place is being rebuilt.
George Galloway,
public transport system in there. He didn't understand the place. And
First also
you know.
Labour. George Galloway failed. George Galloway failed.
That'll be fun, isn't it? That always used to say.
Well, it was extraordinary circumstances, the by-election, wasn't it? Because Labour's candidate was on the ballot paper and then had to stand down. So it's a really good result because he was only seeking to bring division to our communities.
George Galloway motto MP
We don't
filloriಲ್ಲ.
work like that in Greater Manchester. We're a place that kind of thrives on the fact that we are quite
Roster
unified.
is.
We work together, different communities. So I'm glad to see the back of him from Greater Manchester. I think our communities will be relieved to see him gone. So well done, Paul, though. A great result.
Absolutely. We're hearing that there's a recount in Chelsea and Fulham. That's Greg Hand.
Can I also just add another one in that's come in?
Really quickly.
The Conservatives have held Castle Point.
They have.
Might not seem that significant, but that's another one where reform were supposed to win. It's another one that was supposed to be part of that reform 13. So if that's 4 now that was in that list that they've not
the
taken.
vote collapse, the Tory
Completely collapsed. I'm not saying this is a good night for the Conservatives. I think I used the word massacre at the start of the programme.
David's declaration, here we go. Let's see whether he comes in on a skateboard. I don't know what he's going to do.
A little member for Alton Towers.
I, Councillor Liz Green, being the returning officer for the Kingston and Surbiton constituency election held on the 4th of July 2024, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the election is as follows. Ali Abdizai Abdullah, Workers' Party, 395. Jason Chinnery, the official Monster Raving Loony Party, 230.
Thank you.
230 would raise
Raji Das, the Green Party, 3009. Edward Jonathan Davey, Liberal Democrats, 25,870.
Liberal Democrat first 11 I know.
Helen Margaret Edward, the Conservative Party candidate, 8,635. Mark David Fox, Reform UK, 4,787. Eugene O'Dane, Labour Party, 6,561.
Okay.
Eunice, apologies, Eunice.
My God, so 6,000 paise no Labour.
Kingston Independent Residents.
Auto home boot nahi khala eviti.
To the acceptance speech from Ed Davey in just a moment or two. Also
Labour in
stand
3.
by for the declaration for the would-be Deputy Prime Minister, and that is Angela Rayner, waiting for that in just a moment or two. He looks happy, he looks relaxed, he looks relieved. He is being returned as the leader of the Liberal Dems, and 61 seats is the projection from the exit poll.
Ed Davey, Lib Democrat did it first person. Eddie
Was that the
Davey.
first Labour game? Where was that? Kilmarnock. Yeah, that's in that central belt that we expect to throw almost wholesale SNP to Labour. I want to do a shout out though to local
Liberal
government.
Democrat Party.
Always forget, 'cause in Scotland we don't do this. The number of jabos, hats, and robes that you guys have, we don't have any of that.
Yeah, here we go.
Brilliant.
Here we go.
Thank you. It's been a great privilege to serve Kingston and Surbiton and this great community over many years. And I'm humbled that you've given me the chance to
Labour
serve
no
again.
fattoi paise na
So let me
ergese.
start by saying
Eno
a
Lib Demer gati.
thank you.
A former
to Sarah and all the
উপপ্রধানমন্ত্রী
returning
আছেন।
team and to all the staff and police who've worked so hard through the night. You are the unsung heroes of our democracy. It simply wouldn't work without you. And thank you to my fellow candidates for making this a campaign we can all be proud of.
এ হচ্ছে লিবারেল
I wish
ডেমোক্রেট
you all
পার্টির
well in
প্রধান।
the future. Now, I don't know if you could tell, but I've rather enjoyed this campaign. But what I've loved most hasn't been the paddleboarding or the bungee jumping. It's been speaking to people here in Kingston and Surbiton and across the United Kingdom about the challenges they face and their hopes for the future. People who are working hard, raising families, caring for loved ones, playing by the rules, but finding it harder and harder to make ends meet. People who've had to wait hours for an ambulance.
Labour reaches 50 seats.
Or months for urgent cancer treatment. People who are angry at the filthy sewage being pumped
Ealing
into their
Central,
rivers, lakes, and onto their
Acton,
beaches.
Huntington,
People
Ashton
who
under
feel
Lynn.
let down and taken for granted and are desperate for change. Many of them have turned to the Liberal Democrats, in some cases for the first time at this election, and we want to be your champions. We've listened to you, and we've heard you loud and clear.
Underline.
We put your concerns.
Let's listen to Angela Rayner.
And I give my sincere thanks to the returning officer and the team who worked so hard to give this result. And I give the same thanks to the police who have kept us safe and all the other public servants who make our democracy work. I would also like to thank the other candidates because democracy only works when people put themselves forward for office. I want to also say a few words of thanks to my family, my friends, the whole Labour team and all those that have supported me, especially my agent Jed Cooney. You have been such a source of strength to me, not just over the last weeks, but throughout my political life. You've stood by me, you've had my back, and now I hope to do you proud in a Labour government. Finally, most of all, I'd like to thank the people of Ashton-under-Lyne who have elected and re-elected me as your member of Parliament for the past 9 years. From the first day you placed your trust in me, it's been a great privilege to represent you in Parliament. I'm proud to have support right across our community, but I'll never take it for granted. So let me say to all those parents doing the most important job there is, raising the next generation, to the small businesses who tirelessly toil every day in the engine room of our economy, to the working people who are the bedrock of our country, there is no greater honour than to serve you. Throughout my life, I have faced challenges, but I've also seen the power that comes from our community. The people on Bridgeover Estate who have always known me as our Ange, the teachers who have had faith in me, the carers who I worked alongside and the trade unionists I stood alongside. From all of them, I learned that by working together and never taking no for an answer, we can make change and make a difference. As they helped me when I needed it, I am now humbled to have the opportunity to make the difference.
ইনো তো রিফর্মের বোর্ড বুথে রয়েছে, বহুত বুট পাইছে, 8784 সেকেন্ড পজিশন। রিফর্মের বোর্ড পাওয়া তো এটা ভেরি ব্যাড লাক কোন, ইনো ইট আউট।
It is a vote for change. It is a vote to an end to division and to bring our country together, to replace self-service with public service, to take what is broken and begin to rebuild it, and to restore the belief to those who have had hope taken away. It is with a real sense of pride that together We have changed the Labour Party to offer that unity of purpose, that vision of renewal that our country so desperately needs. Today is our chance to turn the page and start a new chapter, to tackle the cost of living crisis and to make work pay, to give working people the
Jose, Louis,
and to provide
who is
hope,
there? How are you?
to rebuild the public services on which we rely and to
Louis,
ensure that every
hello.
community across our country shares in our national success. I am proud of Ashton-under-Lyne. I am proud.
Yeah, good. I'm also good. Thank you. Just watching election update, election result with my TV, with my viewers.
Worth mentioning that Angela Rayner, of course, was a care worker.
Jerry Poppert.
Talked about her.
Oh, his leader, Nigel Farage.
See everybody keen to see Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farageর দলে অলরেডি ফাইল আছে 3টে আসন, এত কম না। কনজারভেটিভের অর্ধেক ফাইল আছে নাইজেল ফরাজ।
Geographically now in most of the country, a vote for Conservatives actually splits our vote and the vote for Labour. The argument they used against us will never be used again. Would you actually leave the Conservative Party then? Conservative
সব লিডার হলে দেখা।
Very clear, I should just say Coventry East, she has been re-elected, old friend of Angela Rayner. Steve Barclay used to be Health Secretary, deaf for now. He has been one of the rare victories for the Conservative Party, waiting for the declaration for Keir Starmer. That will, when we hear his speech, it will be his acceptance speech, but also potentially one or two things that we will hear from him about how he plans to run the next 5 years for this country. That coming up in Holborn and St Pancras. Before that, Gurpreet standing by for us in Clacton. Gurpreet.
Well, Nigel Farage has just made his way over here to the Clacton Leisure Centre. He spent the evening at the local Greek taverna as the exit polls dropped with his team. A few of them peeled over here early. I spoke to them. They were quietly confident that they were staying calm, but they were quietly scenes later if Nigel Farage, as the exit polls suggest, does win here. It won't be an easy feat. It will require overturning a 25,000 Conservative majority. But I've spent the past few weeks with him on the campaign trail here in Clacton, and there is a lot of love for him in Clacton at the rally
Suffolk
on Wednesday.
Conservative forces, Suffolk West,
and vote for him, and it looks like
Leicester West Labour,
delivered him a
Markfield
victory. He will
Labour.
no doubt be buoyed by that exit poll, which suggests that he could win here. This is a man, of course, that's attempted 7 times to become an MP. 7 times he's failed despite his outsized influence on British politics. When I asked him yesterday what success would look like, he said that this wasn't just about eating into the Conservatives' vote share, about doing them damage. It was about winning seats, about building a bridgehead in Parliament. And if that exit poll is anything to go by, it looks like that may be achieved. Lee Anderson in Ashfield has already won as the first Reform MP. The polls suggest there could be 13, crucially, not just winning from the Conservatives, but also gaining from Labour. However, I would caveat that some of the early results that have come in from Barnsley North, Barnsley South and Hartlepool, for example, suggest that it hasn't been smooth sailing for Reform UK, that they may as yet underperform those polls. But another interesting aspect of this is the seats in which they're coming in second. As many as 155 seats they could come in second. I think almost all of the seats that have been declared in the North East, they've come in second, chiefly behind Labour. So for now, while a lot of the framing around this has been what kind of impact or influence
Clacton, not London.
Tories during their
East
period
London
of
news একটা
opposition.
আইলো না এখন পর্যন্ত।
What's clear is that there's another aspect to this, which is what kind of impact
আমাদের বাঙালি উদ্দেশিত ইস্ট লন্ডন
in government.
রোশনার আলী ফাঁস করলো নি না কিতা
There's a recount in Basildon, and that is where Richard Holden, who was parachuted in the Conservative chairman, is. There's been a recount.
Lewisham, Newcastle North, Bishop Auckland.
And the Conservatives. It's a three-way potential, three-way marginal potentially. There's a lot of people. I can see the Labour candidate watching every vote as it's being recounted. Also hearing about 20 minutes time, Beth, that the Jeremy Corbyn seat is likely to declare Kimmy Bowden's Hock's seat as well in about 10 minutes time.
I'm told that it's now probable that that Jeremy Corbyn will hold Islington North. So it's edging towards that, yeah. Not certain.
Holborn, St Pancras.
No, it's an extraordinary.
Sarke, Streamer, Holborn and St Pancras. আর হচ্ছে Clacton. আরিশা Clacton আমি থাকছি ওইদিন ওইদিন আসলাম Clacton
from a guy who had defected from the Labour Party to the SDP, and it's really
Clacton on Sea.
At the other end, I guess, of his parliamentary career, he's the guy who's been expelled from the Labour Party, but he's won.
Yeah.
It sounds like.
Looking at pictures there of Nigel Farage waiting.
তিনটা পাইলিছে ভাষণ
He will not be, if he does win Clacton, the constituency, he
Reform
will not be the first Reform MP in the House of Commons. That must sting a little bit, given how many times he's tried to become a Prime Minister. Ruth, of the two results in from Scotland, the average SNP to Labour swing is 20 points. Kilmarnock and Loudon and Dumbartonshire West. Possible that the SNP will do even worse than the 10 seats that he predicted.
Yeah, we did hear, I think I mentioned around maybe 1 o'clock this morning, that from the people that had written the exit poll, all the psephologists behind it, that the numbers were a bit softer in Scotland on how it projected, because it was looking at Tory gains there. They had the SNP down a lot at 10, but it looks as if that might be on the optimistic level for them if this is played out. However, and I would caveat this a lot, Scotland is not a homogenous group, but you can't really a national swing across it.
ধারণা দিছি এর চেয়ে বেশি পাইয়া ফাঁস করেন লেবারে
very different to the Highlands and Islands, and there's that South of Scotland band as well, right at the bottom, those 3 seats that sit across the bottom.
On the face of it though, this is a big story of the night. Maybe we're not focusing on enough. This is the collapse of the SNP, isn't it?
But if you think about when the exit poll came out, you suddenly had the third party of the United Kingdom. Now they only stood in 59 seats, 57 now because of the boundary changes. But they got their question at Prime Minister's questions every week. They had that platform. They had the short money. They're going to go down to the fifth party in the country. All of that is gone. All that infrastructure is gone. The ability for them to come back is severely hampered. And we have seen big gains and drop swings in Scotland before, so we get kind of a bit immune to them. But some of the changes here, if they lose, as the exit polls say, 38,
Luton North,
that's enormous.
Bosworth,
Almost as big as
Hinkley, Brosford.
Actually, you reminded me of something that Andy was talking about kind of Anas Sarwar, the Scottish Labour leader. It's true too. They said that when he became leader, and they had at that time 1 MP in Scotland, he said, I want to govern for all of the nations, and was very...
Here's Keir Starmer's declaration.
All right, well, let's listen.
Right. Oh, look, there's Cuddle Me Elbow on the stage. Did you see that? They're all there. The Lib Dems have gained Chelmsford from the Conservatives, and Bolsover has gone to Labour.
Good news for Dennis Stanley, please.
Dennis Skinner, of course.
I, Jenny Rowland, reacting to the absent at the election held in the Holborn and St Pancras constituency on the 4th of July 2024, do hereby give notice that the number of votes cast for each candidate in the election was as follows. Nick, the Incredible Flying Brick, the official monster raving lunatic, 162.
কতটা লাগাইছিল
Liberal Democrats, 2,236. Andrew Joseph Feinstein, 7,312. Wise Islam Independent, 636. Senthil Kumar Independent,
600 tayin daraya
Mireen Malik,
600
Party candidate,
Musulman Islam kita naam
776. John Edmund Poynton, UK Independence Party, 75. David Roberts, Reform UK, 2,371. Tom Scripps, Socialist Equality Party, 61. Bobby Elmo Smith, 19. David Robert Stansel, Green Party, 4,030. Keir Starmer, Labour Party.
এই যে লেবারের প্রধানের আসন লেবার প্রধানের আসন থেকে আসে পাস করছে দেখুন
For you that the new MP for Holborn and St Pancras is also likely to be
Foxton and High to pass করতে
We'll be listening to what he has to say in just a moment or two. I can tell you that Harlow has been a Labour gain. Key Labour target in Essex and a bellwether since 1983 was Robert Halfon's. The Education Select Committee was his old seat. He was standing down.
আমাদের আসন থেকে লেবার পাস করে ফেলছে এটা তো জীবনে পাস করে না
3 pages of people standing waiting for their moment in the sun by standing.
ও মাই গড কনজারভেটিভ এর এই আসন থেকে 40 বছরের বিরুদ্ধে কোনো এমপি পাস করছে না
I love the idea that we have
কনজারভেটিভ পাস করছে এই জায়গা লেবার পাস করে লিছে
you've got incidents that happen and the way
It is really nice.
character standing on stage with the potentially future next prime minister and get 19 votes.
যেটা লাগে লেবার এবার এরা যে কইছে 410 500 যাই কি আমার কাছে লাগে
Vignettes that we had through the campaign itself. There's a lovely ring doorbell that captured Theresa May.
যেহেতু কনজারভেটিভের মেইন দুর্গ ওখানে ফিল করে লিছে কনজারভেটিভ লেবার পাস করে লিছে জীবনের প্রথম সে বুট পাইছে 18,884 18,884 সে হচ্ছে প্রধানমন্ত্রী ইউকে পার্লামেন্টের প্রধানমন্ত্রী হতে যাচ্ছেন
Thank you so much to the police and the returning officer for making sure every voice is heard and every vote is counted. And thank you to Andy White, a fantastic agent, the campaign team, the local party, and all the volunteers who've worked so hard over the last 6 weeks and beyond. Every door knocked, every leaf.
Ja beta ja, congratulations, you are Prime Minister, UK. আগামী 4 বছর রাজত্ব করবে তুই
My fellow candidates who put themselves forward for public service. Because in this room, right here, beats the heart of our democracy. Not in Westminster or Whitehall, but in town halls and community centres up and down the country, in polling stations and voting booths, and most of all, in the hands of the people who hold the power of the vote. It all starts here. And it starts with you. Change begins in this community, with the people who came together to make life better. Like the fantastic councillors who work so hard for our area. Service starts in this neighbourhood. The groups, the faith communities, the local organisations who serve week in, week out. And hope starts with that one kid from Somerstown who dares to believe.
আমার আসন যে কনজারভেটিভ ফেল করলো আমি তো স্বপ্নেও ভাবতে পারছি এখানে লাস্ট 40 ইয়ার্স আছে কনজারভেটিভ কোনোদিনও লেবার পাস করতে পারছে না এই জায়গা লেবার পাস করে লিছে
The mothers I sat with, who've lost children to knife crime, the pensioners who can't get the doctor's appointments they desperately need, the local businesses who've struggled so hard to keep their head above water. I will speak out for you, have your back, fight your corner every single day.
পার্টির প্রধানের যেহেতু একটু দেখার বেশি
And they're ready for change, to end the politics of performance, a return to politics as public service. The change begins right here, because this is your democracy, your community, and your future. You have voted. It is now time for us to deliver. Thank you very much.
So let me tell you about Sakir Rodney Starmer. He's been an MP since 2015. He's hoping to go on better, and it looks as though that is going to happen. He's been a leader since 2020. He's a leading member of the Corbyn Shadow Cabinet, knighted for services to law and criminal justice. He has 2 children, and his daughter has said if he wins, she just wants him to know she isn't moving into Downing Street.
Luton South and South Bedfordshire Labour কাজ করছে
He was named after Keir
Epping
Hardie,
Forest
leader of the Labour Party.
Labour hold
16,000
Brownsey and Old
I'm just going
Southwark
to say that's probably going to go up a little bit as a result. Although it is
Holborn and St.
worth noting,
Pancras
Bill
MP
suggested that half of people don't think that he will be a good Prime Minister.
I think
St.
maybe what
Pancras.
you got there is a hint of what he's going to say on the steps of Downing Street. You heard it there. His whole campaign is about serving humbly,
18,884 ভোট পেয়ে গেছে সে
working people, about ending performative politics
দলের
and
প্রধান
having politics that is about public service, and that is what his whole rhetoric has been all through this campaign. And I think when you see him tomorrow on the steps of Downing Street, it will all be about this. Is it today?
Downing Street যাইব কি সে
But it will be all about, and also about uniting the country, because to come quickly back to what I was talking to
ঋষি সুনাকের কাটটিস কি বান্দা শুরু হয়ে যাব এখন
apparently when he became Labour leader, he said to his
ঋষি
team,
সুনাক বারে যাব আর
I
এ
can't
ঢুকবো
tolerate
গিয়া
having one MP in Scotland. Like, I have to be a PM if I win that governs for the whole country. And so this whole aim to try and win big vote shares in all 3 nations, and they now think that they have achieved that they will be the biggest party in all 3 nations where they fielded candidates is really
84টা পেয়ে গেছে 31টা তাদের টার্গেট থেকে বেশি
the vote share is looking like it is going to be pretty low. We don't have a number yet, but if the vote
his vote's down 17%.
তাদের টার্গেট থেকেও বেশি আসন পাইতেছে লেবারে
they're not trying to stack up votes in safe seats, so they are the whole strategy. And this was Morgan McSweeney, who is his campaign chief, who came on board with him to become Labour leader many years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. They're not trying to stack up votes where they think they can win seats. So they've just redeployed resources to all of these target seats to try and win that.
Lib Dem 9, SNP 0, Labour 84, Conservative 10, Reform 1,
because what Corbyn managed to
Green
do was get quite a big vote
0
share by turning out the vote, but not turning out the vote in the seats where you need.
তাহলে দেখা যায় লিব ডেম আর কনজারভেটিভ সমান সমান একটা বলো
That was all of the strategy.
Is the Lib Dem and Conservative now
tried to execute
level no more different no more distance
I've got sorry to interrupt. Labour confident of winning Shapps and Mordaunt seats. I've just got that in.
Okay, let's find out what's happening with Graham Shapps' seat.
Declaration of results of poll, election of a Member of Parliament for William Hatchfield on Thursday the 4th of July 2024. I, Annie Brewster, being the returning officer at the above election, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded
for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Aaron Jack Oliver, Reform UK, 6,397. Butcher Sarah, the Green Party, 2,986.
Under pressure from Labour.
Lewin Andrew Allen, Labour Party, 19,877.
In a lot of trouble.
Munro John Peter, Liberal Democrats, 3,117. Shapps Grant, the Conservative Party candidate, 16,078.
Bye-bye, Grant Shapps. Bye-bye, Defence Secretary. You are no longer in the House of Commons. Labour, having taken this first Cabinet Minister to fall to Labour.
He's the second.
Yeah,
Yes,
first
and
Cabinet
Alex
Minister
just
to
says the
fall to
second
Labour.
Cabinet Minister to go.
Well, I mean, obviously, you work with people, and you know, I've got on well with Grant in some ways, but you know, he really started this unpicking of our plans for rail in the north. I mean, really alienated a lot of people.
Viewers আসুনি আমার লগে বাক্কা আসো দেখা যায় এখন
So, in our part of the world, there's not going to be many tears shed, I don't think, at this result at all.
Beth, do you want to look at that?
Well, this is a massive blow. Grant Shapps wanted to run as leader. He's the Defence Secretary. He's gone. Look at the vote, down nearly 20 percentage points. And he's the second Cabinet Minister to fall. Now, in 97, 7 Cabinet Ministers lost their seats, and I just wonder...
Generally, Grant Shapps সাবেক মিনিস্টার আছেন সে ফেল হচ্ছে
lost in Cheltenham to the Lib Dems.
See what happens with IDS. Ian Duncan Smith, another big beast in Chingford.
I, Lindsay Roberts-Egan, Acting Returning Officer for the Chingford and Woodford Green constituency, declare that the total number of votes given to each candidate was as follows. Chris Brodie, Green Party, 1,334. Ian Duncan Smith, the Conservative Party candidate, 17,281. Josh Hadley, Liberal Democrats, 1,275. Paul Lugery, Reform UK, 3,653. Pfizer Shaheen, Independent, 12,400.
ওরে শালা এটা তো বহুত পাইছে ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট তারা 12,000 পাইছে আমরা এশিয়ান মহিলা বাংলাদেশি বা ইন্ডিয়ান হইব
Labour Party candidate, 12,520.
As though IDS has held on. Looks like IDS has held on.
Yeah. But I think this goes back to something John McDonnell was saying earlier. I think this is where Labour could have played things differently. Pfizer, I don't know her well, but I know enough to know that she'd really worked hard in that community and was kind of well known there. And I just don't think this works to sort of try and take someone out like that. You know, if Labour is to be the government we all want it to be, it has to have breadth and depth and has to have voices from all sides coming towards it. And there's been a little too much, you know, taking out people who they may consider awkward and putting in others. And that didn't happen in the Blair era. It didn't happen in the Brown era. There was a little bit more kind of live and let live.
But they were doing that.
We would have won that seat, though. If we would have won that seat, Beth.
I know.
If they had not taken it out, we would have won that seat.
But you know why they were doing it. They were worried that they've got this massive majority ahead of them, but at the time they were worried about, in the run-up to the election certainly, they were worried about having a very narrow majority and Keir Starmer being bounced by the kind of 30 to 40 hardcore of left Labour MPs.
I think that's what it's a misplaced thing, though, Beth. Is what I'm saying. And also, as I say,
You need
Sutton,
voices from different parts of the party. I think the current government has failed because it went too narrow, because it took away some of those other voices, and it was only talking to the Brexiteer.
It's happened in Leicester East as well.
I don't think it's a major criticism. I just think they need to rethink this approach.
Happened again.
I think the problem.
There you go. Same thing again.
The problem here, Andy, is that I don't think the party's quite worked out what to do about the issue of Gaza and Muslim votes, because exactly that, what you've just been saying, is what happened in IDS's constituency.
Elevon supports all payments for your business, and all faster than you can say, have a nice day. Elevon, your world of payments.
Constituents. So I think this is, I mean, it's not enough to have dented Labour very seriously, but it's a problem the party's got stored up for.
I think what's on page 2 of that one as well with Claudia Webb is you've also got
লেবার খালি লাল যতটি লেবার
Here's the other. That's what it is.
মাঝে মাঝে একটা দুইটা কনজারভেটিভ
8%. That's pictures there of Nigel Farage waiting for his count in just a few moments.
Can I talk about a Labour big beast that's just won a seat in Scotland?
You can in just a second. Let me just tell people what they're expecting in about 5 minutes or so. We are waiting to see the result from Clacton, and if, as is expected, Nigel Farage will win, will take that seat, he will be the second candidate for Reform that has won this evening. The first one being Lee Anderson, who was previously a Conservative MP. Before that, he represented Labour, of course. He is Reform, wasn't thought to be able to win. He did. Yes, you can.
Yeah, so Paisley and Renfrewshire South, which was Douglas Alexander's old constituency, it was then won by Mary Black from the Labour Party to the SNP, has now gone back to Labour under Joanna Baxter. Now, a lot of people might not know who she is. She's the current chair of the NEC for the whole of the Labour Party. She's also on the Scottish Executive Board. She's a big trade unionist and has been very involved in Labour politics, both north and south of the border, for a long time. She will be, I would expect, at the first reshuffle or second, she'll come into government. She's one of these ones that are going to be fast-tracked for success, I would expect.
I would agree. Joanna Baxter.
Joanna Baxter.
Dougie Alexander has won his seat. So does that mean that
He's my new MP then?
Yeah.
Because I live in Lothian East, or which was the old East Lothian seat. And it was the most marginal in Scotland. He will get lots of casework because it's in terms of the makeup of that seat, there's an awful lot of articulate people that will know exactly where to find his door.
They won't want him to be Foreign Secretary then, will they?
Well, they certainly will make sure that if he does that, he's going to come home and still take care of the washing and knitting as well. Okay. So he can, if he wants to play on the world stage, he's welcome to it. Yeah. But he's also got to see to the spuds at home.
I'd like to see it. Also, challenge. Looking at pictures from Clacton on Sea, Nigel Farage just there in the background.
Oh, Hexham's gone.
Yes, second safest Conservative seat.
100 years that's been a Tory seat.
Second safest.
Anne-Marie Trevelyan in Northumberland North might be the only Tory left in the northeast of England.
Exactly, yeah. Hexham, the second safest seat in the northeast.
Yeah, I feel for Guy Opperman. He's an absolute powerhouse of campaigning. That won't be for lack of effort that he's lost that.
Swing was about 15 points thereabouts.
Yeah.
Surprised?
In terms of what I've seen coming in from the northeast, not so much. It's one of those ones that is the fringe of Newcastle, that Hexham seat, but it's been Tory for a long time. He's the right sort of Tory for it, if you know what I mean. He's very down to earth, works hard, hyperactive, family man, very in touch with the seat. He's not, he doesn't stay away in Westminster. He always wants to be back in his constituency patch. That'll be a tough one for him to take.
Yeah, Grant Shapps has been speaking. I just wanted to also tell you, Basildon, Islington North, Clacton, all going to declare momentarily. Let's hear if we can squeeze in Grant Shapps.
I know that you will represent the people to the very best of your ability, and I wish you well as you take up the battle. In addition to representing Welham Hatfield, I have also had the honour to have served in more cabinet posts than most. From party chairman to transport secretary, home secretary, briefly, to business secretary, energy secretary, and of course, currently defence secretary. I want to pay tribute on that last one to the selfless courage of the men and women of this country who served in our armed forces. I've had the privilege to work with them. And there's no more important task for any government than to defend the realm, and my proudest achievement in government has been to secure a very large multi-billion-pound additional funding to increase our armed forces spending. It's clear tonight that Britain will have a new government in the morning, and I am extremely concerned that unless it quickly commits to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, our armed forces may suffer, and so will our friends in Ukraine. If there's something that I'm incredibly proud about in Britain today, it's our staunch and unwavering support for Ukraine and its democracy. And that must never waver, even.
Right, so here we go. We've got 3 big beast seats coming your way. You ready, ladies and gentlemen? Edge of your seat. You were flagging, weren't you? Honestly, sit up, take note. Clapton. Clapton coming up very shortly. Why is that important? Because that is the man in the middle there, as you can see, Nigel Farage. We've also got Basildon and Billericay. That was a safe, an ultra-safe seat, so much so that the Tories thought, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put our Conservative chairman in there. It's an absolute shame. It's had, I don't know what he's going to do, let's wait and see. He's had a recount there. So Islington North as well. And Beth's got news on Islington North for us, just as she's put a sweetie in her mouth.
It is probable that it is going to go to Jeremy Corbyn. He's going to retain the seat. So Labour as an independent, and then John McDonnell was saying he should be let back into the party. And Andy, you were sort of intimating a bit of that, weren't you, about making it a bit of a broader church again?
I just think if that's what a government needs, you know, it needs voices from all around, and that's what sustains a government in power, when you've got breadth and depth in terms of the voices. But having said that, Beth, to pick up something you were saying before, I can't knock those who've put together this strategy, this general election strategy for Labour. I'm making some points at the margins, if you like, but on the whole, I think it's right for me to recognise Morgan and all the others who've put together, and it has been quite a ruthless strategy in the way that you were describing, you know, not piling up votes where they're not needed. Okay. So, but I am just making that point. I think the Blair and Brown governments benefited from allowing those other voices to be part of the mix.
Okay. 8th time of asking, can he finally be an MP? Moments away from finding out. Ed, have you got a chart?
I've got a chart.
Right.
I've got the swingometer.
Oh, I thought we weren't doing it.
Let's just rejoice at that news.
He's got a swingometer.
I've got bad news, because it's not really
worth swinging.
It's working, but it's not working. Let me show you. Basically,
Cambridge,
so
Labour.
And what's the idea here? It's
Renfrewshire,
these are the seats that at the start
East
of the
Labour.
night were already
Lib Dem gain, Stratford on Avon.
Of the night were Conservative. The whole idea is basically if
Stratford on
across the
Avon,
country
Lib
there's
Dem
a uniform swing, so in all of the seats you're seeing the same movement from the Conservative to Labour or the other way, then this needle goes like that, and then gradually all of these seats are turned red, and then by the time the needle gets
Okay.
there, it's eaten up enough.
শর্ট ব্রেক পরে আবার আসতেছি, মোবাইলে চার্জ শেষ, আরেকটা মোবাইল নিয়ে আসতেছি লাইভে ভিউয়ার্স। এটা এন্ড করে দিচ্ছি লাইভ এখন এখানে।